Hello everyone, this is your friend from Naruto Audio Fanfics, and we are back once again with a brand new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto Uzumaki refused the Kyuubi's evil power, awakening a legendary bloodline and a harem of devoted women, Naruto times Hinata times Sakura times Ino times Tenten times Tamari times Anko times Kurenai times Tsunade times Shizune, Part 1. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to hit the like button, thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing Naruto fanfics like this. So without wasting any more time, let's start today's fanfic. In the village of Konoha, a small 6-year-old blonde boy was getting the crap beaten out of him. This was not the first time this had happened, and the boy knew it wouldn't be the last. But unlike most, he didn't look for a reason why, he just accepted it. However, this time it was getting really bad. There were more people than usual, and they were using more than just their fists. The pain was unbearable, so he did the only thing he could do: he began to pass out. His vision slowly came back to him, and all he saw was a dark hallway. Water was up to his ankle, and a sick smell filled the air. He stared down the dank hallway before finally deciding to make his way down it. He might have been imagining it, but he thought he could hear a sinister laughter from down the hall. The boy stopped in his tracks as he stared up at a large cage in front of him. A large set of glowing red eyes stared down at him. What are you?" he asked. The creature that was a giant red fox began to shrink down. The fox morphed into a small girl about his age. She had short fire-like hair, fox ears, and blood-red eyes. "Hello Naruto," said the girl. "I am the Kyuubi. Why are you here?" he asked quizzically. "I'm here because I was sealed here by your fourth Hokage. I brought you here because I have a deal to make you," she said. Naruto looked up at her curiously, thinking about something. "You're the reason I'm beat up, right?" he said in an even voice. "Those people are fools, Naruto. They all deserve to be killed, every last one of them," said the Kyuubi. "If you are in me, what does that make me?" asked Naruto. "Am I human?" "No," said the Kyuubi instantly. "Naruto, you are a human sacrifice. They gave away your humanity the second I was sealed in you. For such a crime they all deserve to die." "Die?" asked Naruto. "Yes, I can help you get your revenge," said the small girl. "All you have to do is use my power. I can make you great, Naruto. You can make them all suffer and pay for selling your soul. Do you accept?" Naruto looked down, and his hair shadowed over his eyes. A smile came onto his face. The Kyuubi stared at the boy's smile, and an evil smirk appeared on her own face. "Looks like I win. You were a fool to seal me and your son Arashi. I will make him destroy everything you considered precious. All he has to do is say ye." "No," said the blonde, interrupting the fox's thoughts. Naruto stared into the fox's eyes with a childish smile on. What? Why?" asked the small red-headed girl in shock. "Because I don't trust your eyes," said Naruto in an innocent voice. The Kyuubi slammed against the cage, changing back into the giant fox form. "Insolent brat, I will tear you." Once again the Kyuubi was cut off as a giant wall of light appeared in front of her when she slammed into the cage. She cringed back in shock. She looked at the boy, who was now glowing with a light blue aura. His innocent smile was still plastered on his face, and his eyes were glowing a crystal blue. He gave a presence of pure radiance, which shocked the Kyuubi even more. "A mental defense, ho how. I finally understand now," said Naruto in his childish voice. However, it held a tone of maturity. "If I was meant to be your jailer, then that is what I will be. Even if I am no longer considered human, I will still protect them because," the Kyuubi stared at him, listening intently, "that is what I have been trusted to do." Naruto then turned around and began to walk out of the dark room. Kyuubi was screaming at the top of her lungs from behind the barrier while trying to break through the wall of light. "You'll regret this, brat, you'll regret this," shouted the Kyuubi, not that it could be heard through the barrier. Naruto slowly came to consciousness in the alley. Everyone was still surrounding him, screaming out unmentionable things. He slowly began to stand up. The entire mob fell silent in shock that he was moving, considering all the blood he had just lost. His bones were broken, flesh torn, and body was bruised, but even so he stood. He looked at all those gathered with glowing blue eyes, and first time he saw it, all the pain they had been hiding through their anger. I must have been a constant reminder of what they lost, thought Naruto. The crowd took a few steps back in fear as Naruto stumbled forward. He grabbed onto the sleeve of a villager who instantly stiffened up. Naruto looked up at him and there was a small gasp from the man he had grabbed. Naruto's eyes shone with utter sadness, but not self-pity. It was directed towards the village. I'm sorry, for what she's done, said Naruto as he let go of the villager. He made his way through the crowd. They parted for him, not wanting to go near him. However, a few noticed that unlike the previous times, the boy's wounds were not healing up. Sarutobi looked into the crystal ball with a neutral expression on his face. He knew where the boy would go next. Naruto would come here demanding answers and most likely blame him for what he had done. The old man gave the order to let the boy in. The Hokage watched Naruto stumble into the room on a leg that appeared to be broken. Sarutobi wondered why the Kyuubi hadn't healed him yet. Sarutobi slightly cringed at the boy's state but waited for the boy to speak his words of hate. However, the old man was surprised beyond belief as he saw the boy look up. There was no hate or anger held in the boy's eyes, all the Hokage could see was determination and understanding. Naruto got down on one knee and bowed down. Hokage-sama, please help me become a strong ninja, said Naruto. Naruto he was cut off as Naruto spoke again. I want to go to the academy, but I know no one will help me there, said Naruto. I want to be stronger to protect this land like the fourth did. Sarutobi stared at the boy silently as a visible tear came down his face and soon it was accompanied by a few more. I'm not asking you to train me personally, that would be selfish when you have a whole village to protect. I just want your guidance, from you, a personal tutor, even a scroll would do. Just please, give me a chance to protect this village, said Naruto with tear-filled eyes. Please. The Hokage looked into those eyes and noticed they were glowing. His own eyes went wide at this and then he smiled. He turned his chair around so that he was now looking out the window over the village. Naruto, if you look to your right you will see 3 sets of scrolls, said Sarutobi. In those are the basics, from hand seals to chakra. Take them, study them and grow strong. I expect you to study those all night and be here by morning to show me any progress you might have made. I will then explain what you need to work on as well as give you a training schedule. The old man turned back around and threw some bands and another scroll over to Naruto. A gift from your father, you should look at it after you learn the basics, said the Hokage. Naruto just stared at him with a look of absolute joy. Unknown to him, a blue aura had surrounded him and his wounds had all healed. Sarutobi on the other hand had noticed but was not at all surprised. Naruto left the office and the old man swerved around in his chair so he was facing the window. He smiled again at his thoughts. The bloodline radiance has been awoken, Arashi, you would be proud. Naruto ran all the way to his apartment, not even noticing the fact that his leg no longer seemed broken. When he entered his apartment he immediately opened up the first scroll. It was all on chakra and all its principles. Naruto spent the next 2 hours memorizing its every aspect and theory until he understood it completely. He then read every other scroll. He learned about ninjutsu, taijutsu, and genjutsu. He didn't know any of them but the scrolls explained what they were and their principle. Naruto then came to a scroll on the hand seals. It showed how to perform them and what they were used for. He then made a conscious decision. He decided to not read his father's scroll until he had mastered forming all the seals in any order with sufficient speed. He practiced all these all night, testing himself to see if he forgot anything. He didn't. Naruto ran to the Hokage tower as fast as he could. He immediately barged into the old mont's office and saw him waiting there expectantly. Well, shall we begin? Said the Hokage. I have taken the day off to show you your training and more, but don't expect me to do this often. And so they trained Sarutobi showed him the proper ways to throw a kunai or shuriken. The old man was surprised at how fast his seal rate was already as well as his understanding of chakra. Now be sure to look at your father's scroll when you get home, said Sarutobi. You have more than enough understanding of the basics. Naruto returned home and opened up his father's scroll. Dear Naruto, Radiance, that is what they call our bloodline, my son. Back when our clan was new, we were said to have been blessed by a god. Our power lies in the fact that our bodies are unique. Once your bloodline awakens, your bones will become almost unbreakable. You could fall from a height 3 times the size of the Hokage monument and not even get so much as a dislocation. This is good considering that one of our abilities is flight. If you can awaken your wings, my son, you will be able to soar above the clouds. Our chakra is that of miracles, it constantly heals us at a miraculous rate. Of course, it will take some time before it can heal your wounds instantly. You will be able to push your body past limits not meant for mortals. Ask the third about it, he will show you what I mean. Your eyes will glow with the power of chakra, and though they are nowhere near the power of the Sharingan, they still allow you to see things in a slower light. Train hard and live long, my son. Any of the other aspects of our bloodline you will have to figure out for yourself. Love. Your father Arashi, 4th Hokage. Naruto had run out the door to the third's office as fast as he could. Everything in that letter was an eye-opener. He needed to know more. When he arrived, the Hokage was waiting there expectantly once again. Naruto was panting heavily and the old man smiled. Naruto for some reason felt compelled to smile back. Do you have the bands I gave to you with the scroll? He asked. Naruto fished through his pocket and pulled out 2 black bands with red jewels in them. Good, put them around both your feet and I will show you what your father meant by past limits not meant for mortals. Naruto placed the bands around his ankles and waited. The third grabbed some ink and a knife. What are those for? Asked Naruto. I'm going to place seals on you that will increase the amount of gravity placed on you, said the Hokage. I need the knife because it requires some of your blood to be in the ink. And what are the bands for? Said Naruto. They are to prevent the ground from breaking underneath you, said the Hokage. So to others it will appear that gravity is affecting you normally. Naruto nodded in confirmation. The third cut him with the knife, but Naruto didn't show any reaction to the small tinge of pain. The old man placed seals on him faster than he could blink and they all revolved around a large diamond-shaped one on his upper right shoulder. The effects were instant as Naruto went slamming down to the floor. He couldn't move at all and was having a tough time breathing. All his muscles were screaming for relief. This is what he meant by beyond mortal limits, said the Hokage. You see, on anyone else I would have started it on twice, maybe 3 times normal gravity, but because your body adapts and thrives on the tougher conditions, I placed you under 15 times normal gravity. Normally a person's muscles would snap under that much pressure if they started out with it immediately, but your muscles can only benefit. Naruto was shocked at the sheer force being put on him. He couldn't believe he was supposed to be able to do this. He put his hands to the ground and pushed up with all his strength. To his immense surprise, he was actually getting up. It was a snail's pace, but he knew he could do it. And that was when the words of both the third and his father made sense. It wasn't going to be easy, but he was still capable of doing this, whereas others would have severely injured themselves. He continued at that pace, pushing with all his might to stand, and he finally did. The old man smiled. Good, now I will take you to the place of your training, said the old man. He picked up Naruto and the two of them vanished. Before Naruto realized it, he was in the middle of the forest with the old man. Naruto, listen carefully. You are going to be out here for the next couple of months. You will not go back to the village and you will train according to your schedule, said the Hokage. For the next 2 weeks I will come by every night to give you food. At the end of those 2 weeks I will increase your gravity by 5 and leave you to get your own food from then on. This will continue for a while and every 2 weeks thereafter I will upgrade your gravity by 5 again. Naruto looked at him unbelievingly, but he soon smiled. This will make me strong. This will give me what I need to protect everyone, thought Naruto. Sarutobi threw the schedule to Naruto. All it said to do today was 25 push-ups. Naruto remembered the effort it took just to push himself up once with this weight. Naruto, it won't be easy, but for you it is very possible, Sarutobi said. And so it continued like that. The next day Naruto had to manage 25 sit-ups followed by 25 laps around his training area. Every day new exercises, and soon it got to doing multiple ones in the same day, as well as the amount he had to do increased. Sarutobi had spent a few days throwing kunai at him, in which he had to dodge. The ones that hit him he had to pull out and let his chakra heal. This forced him to learn about his healing ability. 2 months passed and he was now on 40 times normal gravity, which to say was only one thing, killer. He could barely move at all with it on. He lied down panting heavily. I will do this no matter what, he said to himself as he stood up shakily. And then it happened. A huge pain erupted from his back. It was sharp and precise as it cut open on his back. 2 angelic white wings burst forth from his upper back. They stayed frozenly pointed out as feathers fell around Naruto. Clapping was heard from Naruto's side. When he looked over he saw the face of the Hokage. Well done, Naruto. You brought them out sooner than I thought, said the old man. Now that you have awakened them, all you have to do to summon them is place chakra on your back. Naruto smiled at the old man. Thank you, for everything, said Naruto. Sarutobi fought back a tear. It is the least I can do, especially since you plan to use that power to protect my village, said Sarutobi. Naruto nodded. We are done increasing your gravity for a while. I will finally let you get used to a setting instead of switching it when it becomes slightly easier. Naruto stood up and tried to summon the wings back into him. With a small stab of pain they went back into him. Naruto got ready to run laps when the old man held up his hand. Naruto, what is the point of wings if you can't use them? Said Sarutobi. Take them out. Naruto summoned chakra to his back and once again he felt a small tinge of pain. He doubled over only slightly as they came out. He spread his wing and pushed off the ground, however he was disappointed to find out he only got 3 feet of the ground. He was flapping them as hard as he could but he couldn't go any higher. He fell panting slightly from the effort. Why can't I fly? He asked. Because of your weights, said Sarutobi. Your wing muscles are only as strong as your other ones. That is why they only woke now, because of the weight training you got the necessary strength for flight. If you removed your gravity seal you could fly easily. Naruto nodded and was about to remove the seal when Sarutobi shook his head no. What, why? Asked Naruto. For the next 2 days I want you to remain in that spot trying to fly as high as you can non-stop, said the Hokage. No sleep, no food, you must be in the air even if it is only an inch off the ground. Naruto looked at him shocked at what he was supposed to do. But then he thought about it. So far he had constantly been put through training that no one else could do at the pace he was. Sure, it was all extremely hard, but he had managed. And Naruto could tell by the look in the old man's eyes that he had complete confidence in him. Naruto, you can use your special chakra to stay strong, said Sarutobi. Naruto nodded and a swirl of bluish-white chakra swept around him. His form was glowing, even his wings seemed to pulsate with energy and his eyes glowed with an electric blue. With that he was up 10 feet in the air. Sarutobi smiled. Radiance. When used to its real potential, it increases the body's attributes above the user's already limitless body, thus creating almost a super-powered self. Truly it is the strongest bloodline in Fire Country, if not every country, thought Sarutobi as he vanished. In the dark sewer that was Naruto's mind, a young girl paced back and forth in her cage. I'm so bored, she said. Kyuubi then looked out her cell past the barrier. She could see Naruto training as if he were on television. Why does he do that? No one will accept him, he is a fool. And when the time comes that he is shown the error of his ways, I will be there to rub it in his face, said the Kyuubi with an evil smirk. He'll regret not using my power and putting up this barrier to prevent me from giving it, not that I would want to give it to him at this point. Kyuubi continued making plans with herself and imagining what she should do. Naruto had been flying over the same spot for almost a day. It was harder than anything that he could imagine, and yet even still he added to the challenge. He went over all the seals again and was performing them. While doing so, he was barely able to stay a foot off the ground, but the Hokage had said that even 1 inch was enough. To him, he thought his seal rate was impressive, but he had the distinct feeling that compared to other ninja it was probably rather slow. He stopped forming seals so he could focus on flying. He struggled, but he eventually made it above the trees. Naruto was surprised at how far away he was from the village. He could barely make out the Hokage monuments in the distance. The young demon container wondered how long he had been out there or when the Hokage would show up. Good thing he was a patient person because he was there for hours still. Finally, Sarutobi showed up in front of Naruto. He gave the boy a nod and Naruto stopped flapping his wings. He fell to the ground with a thump, breathing heavily, almost gasping for air as he tried to relax. "Well done, Naruto, well done," said old man Sarutobi. "We're going back home. You can rest for a while, you've earned it." The Hokage and Naruto teleported back to the village outside Naruto's apartment. Naruto went inside and immediately passed out on his bed. Naruto had been asleep for a full day. As a matter of fact, he probably would have been out even longer had the Hokage not come and woken him up. "Wake up, Naruto, I have a few things to go over with you now," said the Hokage. Naruto got up groggily, not knowing what was going on. "Old man, why are you here?" asked Naruto tiredly. The old man smiled at him. He then took something out of his pocket and placed it in Naruto's hand. He looked down at it and saw it was a pair of dark black sunglasses. "Glowing eyes aren't exactly natural, Naruto," said the old man Hokage. "Arashi always kept his blood a secret, and you should do your best to keep it a secret as well." Naruto put on the sunglasses and looked up at the old man with a smile. "Hey Hokage-sama, when do I start the academy?" asked Naruto. "Naruto, normally kids don't begin until they are 7, and I am thinking of entering you later than usual," said the Hokage. Naruto frowned downward at this. "Naruto, you are already showing that you are stronger in your bloodline than your father was. Your eyes are the proof of that, being that the glowing doesn't stop and only gets brighter as he accesses it. I just want to keep training you in studies more suited towards your skills. You will still be able to go to the academy to make friends," said Sarutobi. "Friends?" asked Naruto. He then looked back down with a sad smile. "I would only be so fortunate." The Hokage was taken aback by the maturity in the statement. "I'm not really deserving of friends, but I will still make as many people as I can happy." He said that last part looking up with a truly happy smile. "Yes, I'm sure you will," said the Hokage. "Will I still graduate when I'm supposed to?" asked the blonde. "Provided you don't fail, then yes," said Sarutobi, smiling. "And Naruto, look on getting a weapon. I happen to know that it is extremely hard to make effective attacks with your fists while flying at the speeds you'll be traveling at." Naruto nodded. "Big sword?" he said. The Hokage looked a little surprised. "Naruto, there are other weapons than just a big sword," said Naruto, cutting him off. "I saw this really big cool one at a weapons shop I passed by. Do you think maybe I could get it with you?" Sarutobi looked into the glowing eyes of the boy. "All right, but only if you train seriously and diligently with it almost every day," said the old man. "I don't just want you to be someone who swings a giant hunk of steel around." The two of them made their way to the store Naruto wanted to shop at. Naruto stayed outside and pointed out the sword from the window. When the Hokage looked at it, he was more than a little surprised. When Naruto meant big sword, he meant a big sword. It was huge. Cloud's sword from Final Fantasy VII, Advent Children. But then Sarutobi looked at it again. Its size and weight were perfect considering what Naruto was able to handle. It would definitely help him in his training. The Hokage walked in and purchased the sword. The owner was all too happy to sell. He brought Naruto home and gave him a scroll as well as a holder for the sword. "Now Naruto, This is actually 6 blades in one. That scroll was specifically meant for this sword, said the Hokage. Naruto took the sword and lifted surprisingly easily. Train well with it. They call you the hot-blooded dropout, shouted a group of kids. A kid with rather large eyebrows covered his ears and ran away. Lee, get back here, shouted out an instructor. Lee didn't hear it with his ears covered and continued to run. He ran through the whole village on the verge of tears. I'll show them all, I will be a great ninja, thought Lee as he ran towards one of the training areas. When he arrived, he halted. In the middle of the training area was a boy in a plain white t-shirt and black shorts. That wasn't the odd thing. What was really odd was the huge object he was wielding. It was at least 5 feet long and a foot wide. It was completely covered in bandages, making it almost impossible to identify. Excuse me, but is it all right if I train here as well? I will only use that log over there, said Lee. The boy turned around. He was wearing dark sunglasses. He smiled. Sure, go right ahead, said the blonde-haired boy. Thank you. I'm Rock Lee, by the way, said Lee. It's nice to meet you, Lee. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, said Naruto. Lee walked over to the log while Naruto kept swinging the bandage-covered object. So Lee, what you doing here? I'm here to get stronger, said Lee, punching away at a log. Stronger, why? Asked Naruto. I'm called a dropout at the Ninja Academy, said Lee. I can't use ninjutsu or genjutsu and I have below average taijutsu. Naruto looked at him thoughtfully. That is why I must get strong, to show them that hard work can make a ninja strong, that I can be great with just taijutsu. That is my dream. Lee looked over at Naruto expecting him to laugh. That's a nice dream, Lee, said Naruto. Lee looked a little surprised but smiled. And why are you here? Why do you want to be strong? Asked Lee. I want to protect everybody, said Naruto. Lee looked at him curiously. I am a reminder of something terrible, something that causes people pain. I want to stop that. I want their pain to go away, to make them feel safe. Lee looked at him completely shocked but then smiled a wide grin. Then let us work hard, Naruto-kun, said Lee. Naruto looked at him and smiled as well. Hey Naruto. Naruto looked over at Lee. Do you think maybe we could be friends? Naruto went completely still. Does something like me deserve friends? He thought. You see, you're the only one who hasn't laughed at my dream, and well, I don't have any friends, said Lee. Lee, I would like to, but your parents wouldn't agree, said Naruto. Lee looked up at him with a huge grin. That's not a problem, Naruto-kun. I'm an orphan, said Lee. I'm already living on my own on special request, so I won't ever get parents. Naruto looked at Lee once again. Can I have a friend? Thought Naruto. Despite what people would say, Naruto wanted a friend. Even if Lee for some reason had to leave, he still would have known it. Yes, I'll be your friend, Lee, said Naruto, not knowing tears were falling from his eyes. Great, then let us continue, said Lee, pounding the log faster. The two of them were there till late in the night training. Naruto had shown Lee exercises he could do to improve himself. And Lee seemed to get it pretty quick. Hey Naruto, I don't have classes tomorrow, do you want to train? Asked Lee. Naruto nodded happily. But before we do that, can you help me with something? Said Naruto. Sure, anything, said Lee. Well, you see, I was thinking. It's all over Uzumaki, said an Anbu member. Why did you and your friend defile this monument? The Hokage monument was completely changed. A girl with smoke covering her private areas was painted just below the faces. And the faces had been painted to have different reactions. The first looked mad with a scowl, the second was sweat dropping and it looked like his eyes were looking away, the third looked like his eyes were wide and had a perverted blush and smile on his face, and the fourth had a nosebleed. The third Hokage walked out on his balcony and stared up at the monument. A small smile came onto his face. And then that smile turned to a laugh. I'll ask you again, why did you do tea? The Anbu were cut off as a sound made its way across the air. They all listened carefully and soon it was recognized as laughter. First it started out small but then it grew, as multiple people seemed to join. The Anbu members looked over at the village and saw hundreds of people in the streets, all of them, laughing. They could even see the Hokage on his balcony laughing. They looked over at the demon container and his apparent new friend. Both the boys were looking over the village with a small smile on their face. Okay, we'll clean it up now, said Naruto, not looking away from the village and its laughing citizens. Naruto and Lee were currently hanging on the side of the Hokage monument with water buckets and rags in hand. See Lee, didn't I tell you it was worth it? Said Naruto. Naruto-kun, I never doubted your genius, said Lee, looking at the paint they still had to wash off, laughing. I've never had so much fun. Naruto smiled. Well, I'm going to clean the paint that's over here, said Naruto, swinging from the rope that attached him and Lee to the monument. Lee stared at his friend as he swung away. I am a reminder of something terrible, something that causes people pain. I want to stop that. I want to make their pain go away, to make them feel safe. You will, Naruto, I know you will, said Lee to himself. He then put on a goofy grin and ran across the wall, scrubbing even faster. The two made their way through the streets of Konoha, smiling brightly. Naruto was walking at a tremendous slow pace and looked exhausted. Lee had already learned from Naruto that he had advanced weights on. Naruto had his dark sunglasses on, completely covering his eyes, and had his hands behind his head, walking. Let's get something to eat, said Naruto as he and Lee made their way into the ramen bar. Hey old man, give me 10 bowls of miso ramen and The same, shouted out Lee enthusiastically. Naruto looked at him a little surprised but smiled. The old man had tears of joy running down his face that he now had 2 bottomless pit customers. As the old chef was fixing the ramen, he couldn't help but smile slightly at the boys behind him. The little boy Naruto had always come there depressed and was only cheered up by the ramen, but now he had a friend that was making him just as happy. The two ate as fast as they could, almost racing each other. When they finished, they received a pleasant surprise when the old man told them that today it was on the house. They ran out, or in Naruto's case dragged himself with all his strength to move 2 feet of the stand full speed towards the training ground. Both Lee and Naruto were practicing with one another now. Naruto didn't know any taijutsu, the old man had only shown him seals, and how to get his body stronger, but he had never used taijutsu before. Lee knew some taijutsu, but he was far away from being a genius in it, so they were basically at the same point in their training. Hey Lee, I think we should stop and run laps around Konoha, said Naruto. What, why? Are you even sure you can do that? Said Lee skeptically. Not that I have a problem with it, just that I think I'm finally getting better, said Lee with a smile. Well, I can ask the Hokage if he can show us some taijutsu tomorrow, said Naruto. Because right now it's not improving. Very well, Naruto-kun, then we shall race, said Lee, taking the starting position. Naruto just chuckled as he got in a similar position. Ready, set, go. And they took off. Lee shot ahead of Naruto. The small blonde was doing all he could with his weights. Lee slowed it down to a slow jog to stay with Naruto, but still kept himself far ahead. Naruto paused for a while and looked to his side. Lee noticed this and stopped too. Naruto-kun, what are you looking at? Asked Lee. Naruto pointed in front of him. Geez Choji, why do you always make us lose? Shouted out a random kid to a slightly chunky one. Yeah, every team you're on ends up losing, said another. The boy known as Choji turned around and ran off upset. Choji sat on a stone stool sobbing. Why does everyone have to be so mean? Said Choji to himself. He continued to cry silently when a sound caught his attention. When he looked over, he saw a kid wearing sunglasses with his hands in his pockets sitting next to him. He looked to his other side and saw someone else with the strangest eyebrows he'd ever seen. Hey, are you here to make fun of me too? Asked Choji. Naruto laughed. Really, do you think someone who looks like me has any right to make fun of you? Said Lee, pointing at his eyebrows. Choji laughed at this. Don't listen to what those kids say, they don't know what they're talking about, said Naruto. Choji looked up at him curiously. But they're right, I'm the reason they keep losing, it's because I'm so big, said Choji. Choji, the way I see it, being big is a good thing, said Naruto. For me, it would mean I would be able to eat even more ramen. You could see a twinkle behind his sunglasses as he said that. Shuji laughed at this. Listen, soon you won't have to worry about people making fun of you. Choji looked at him curiously. What do you mean? Asked Choji. As that was said, a lazy-looking kid with a pineapple-shaped haircut walked up to them. Naruto turned and left before anyone could say anything, and Lee followed. Hey, you're Akamichi Choji, right? Said the boy. Yes, and who are you? Asked Choji. I'm Nara Shikimaru, our dads used to be teammates. He said. Choji looked at him, then smiled. Do mind if I sit up here with you and watch the clouds? Naruto-kun, that was super cool of you, the way you were all like, soon you won't have to worry about people making fun of you, and stuff. Said Lee, trying to imitate Naruto. Naruto laughed so loudly at this that he fell over. He tried to get up but couldn't and sighed. Damn, these things are so heavy I can't get up, said Naruto. Are you sure about that? I mean, when I help you up it's not hard at all, said Lee. That's because of these babies, said Naruto, pointing to the black jewel-crusted bands. To everyone else it's like I'm being affected normally. Oh, I see, said Lee. Say, Naruto, tomorrow is the last day of the academy before the break, and then the new semester. You'll be joining the academy then, right? Said Lee with a cheerful smile. Naruto shook his head. No. The Hokage said that I will join later, maybe a couple of years after, said Naruto. Lee frowned immensely at this. But don't worry, I will train with you every morning and whenever you have free time. In an instant Lee was up wearing a huge grin. So we will still be friends, excellent, shouted out Lee. Naruto was brought out of his friend's ranting when he heard something. He followed the source of the noise to a group of bullies. They appeared to all be gathered around something and making fun of it. That something appeared to have pink hair. Look at that large forehead, said one bully as he smacked the top of the now apparent girl's head. This caused her to cry a little. Ah, is the big-headed baby gonna cry? That caused even more tears to escape from the girl's closed eyes. Naruto looked on at the scene and noticed a girl with blonde hair looking confused at it from the swings. The girl looked torn between what to do. Naruto decided he wasn't going to wait as he walked over. The bullies were taken aback by when a small blonde-haired boy walked in front of the girl they were picking on. He didn't say anything as he stood in front of her. Hey, get out of our way, said one bully as he threw a punch at Naruto. Naruto, knowing that with his weights on he wouldn't be able to block it, took the blow to the face. Surprisingly, he didn't move at all. He barely felt the weak punch due to his training. The boy kept hitting him in different spots, but each time Naruto just stood there unaffected. You're weird. Let's go, guys, this isn't fun anymore, said the leader of the group. As they left, Naruto turned around and looked at the girl. He smiled slightly. Are you all right? He asked kindly. The girl's eyes widened as she stared, mesmerized by something. Naruto wondered why she was staring until he noticed his sunglasses had fallen forward on his nose a little, revealing his glowing blue eyes. He adjusted his glasses and the girl seemed out of her trance. Thank you, she said quietly as she got up. She stared at the ground and then bowed slightly. Naruto looked at her thoughtfully when he saw an older woman with the same pink hair walking at a slightly hurried pace towards them. Naruto instantly knew what was going to happen, so he nodded to the girl and walked away. Sakura, are you all right? That demon didn't hurt you, did he? Asked the older Haruno. She glared daggers at the boys retreating back. No. Mom, he saved me from some bullies, said Sakura shyly. Her mother was surprised by this and looked at the boy who was walking towards a young blonde. Being a former Junin, Mrs. Haruno focused her hearing on the boy as he began to speak with the girl on the swings. I saw you thinking of helping her, said Naruto. Next time please do. I think she could use a friend. The blonde girl that was on the swings shook her head yes, as if it was an order she would happily fulfill. Mrs. Haruno stopped listening in and stared at the back of the boy, shocked and surprised at his words. Sakura tugged at her sleeves. Mommy, is everything okay? Asked Sakura in her small voice. Mrs. Haruno didn't know how to respond at the time, so she went to her old instincts towards the boy. Sakura, be careful around that boy. If you ever see him again, just try to ignore him, said the older Haruno. You'll be safe then. If you stay out of his way, he'll stay out of yours. Sakura looked extremely confused and slightly heartbroken. Is he bad? She asked. Mrs. Haruno looked down, confused as well. I'm not sure. Just be careful if you see him again, she said. Once again, you were super cool, Naruto-kun, shouted out Lee, pointing his fist in the air. Naruto smiled but then frowned slightly. Lee, do you understand that by being my friend you may not be able to have any others? Asked Naruto, looking down. Lee instantly became serious. You are looked down upon for reasons I don't know. You seem to get cold glares wherever you go, and yet, Lee trailed off. You are kind, you accepted me and want to protect others. You are truly a great person, Naruto, and I am proud to call you my first friend, even if you are my only friend, because you are the closest thing I have to a brother. Naruto looked at him, his eyes wide from behind his sunglasses. Thanks, Lee. Now how about some ramen? Said Naruto, taking on a goofy pose. What, again? We just had some, said Lee, taking on an equally goofy pose. What? Already sick of ramen? Then you clearly don't have the passion for it. I do, said Naruto, adjusting his glasses, instantly feeling better. And then the two headed towards their favorite ramen stand. Naruto and Lee both stood in front of the Hokage with a determined look on their faces. So can you help teach us taijutsu? Asked Naruto. The Hokage smiled and snapped his fingers. A man with a bowl-shaped haircut and eyebrows as large as Lee's appeared. He wore a green spandex outfit and was grinning like a madman, which he probably was. From here on, Guy will teach you taijutsu every morning starting at 4 a.m., said the Hokage. Both Naruto and Lee nodded with excitement, not minding the time. Something their new sensei felt the need to approve of. Wonderful, your youthful spirits allow you to train without complaint, shouted out Guy. Naruto and Lee both smiled. Sure, the guy seemed a little eccentric, but both of them could tell they were gonna like him. Naruto stared up at the man's eyebrows and then looked over at Lee. I thought you said you were an orphan, said Naruto. Lee, understanding what he meant, just shrugged. Coincidence, said Lee. Good, now let us begin today, shouted out Guy, grabbing both Lee and Naruto. He jumped out of the building with them in hand and ran towards the training ground like lightning. They were there in a matter of seconds. Guy put both the boys down and took on a calm, serious face. I've seen you two train constantly, said Guy with a faraway look in his eyes. It is truly great that you have such youthful passion. I will train you to the point of breaking, and make you strong. Naruto and Lee looked at their new sensei with a little respect. Trust me when I say, you will be strong, said Guy. A smile played on both Naruto's and Lee's lips. Now Naruto, I understand that you already have special weights on, so I will only give these to Lee. Guy took 2 large ankle weights out from behind his back and strapped them around Lee's legs. Now give me 10 laps around Konoha, both of you, said Guy. Both Naruto and Lee took off at a slightly slow pace, both of them even. Guy was in front of them, running backwards. As we run, I will teach you the principles of Guken, Iron Fist style. Surprisingly, even though they were running, both Lee and Naruto got a good grasp of the style. After they had finished their laps, they were both severely out of breath. Guy looked like he was about to call it quits when his students stepped forward. You said you wouldn't hold anything back, said Naruto. That's right, keep going, said Lee. Guy smiled widely. Very well, he said. Even though Naruto and Lee were near dead from exhaustion from their weight, they still practiced all the stances without any less enthusiasm that they would normally give. Naruto stood at the center of the training field. 5 swords were stuck in the ground around him as he lifted a fairly decent-sized one. He spun it around his head with grace, and as he lunged it forward, the blade split open down the middle, making the blade wider. It appeared to have a solid core in between the 2 pieces of blade with holes in it. The blade he was wielding was actually part of the large sword the old man had bought for him. He was currently wielding the main blade. It split down the middle and had a solid red handle. It was the core of the larger sword that all the swords could form. To his side was the hollow blade. It was a sword that didn't have a core, instead it was a sheet of metal folded over into a V shape. It could easily slip into the main blade, forming an outer shell. Then there were two twin sets of swords. The first two were serrated swords. They had a sharp blade on one side, but the other side of the sword was jagged and serrated like a saw. Then the next two swords were large switchblades. They were long enough to be swords, but gears that connected the blade and the handle allowed them to fold up by the handle like a switchblade. Naruto continually spun the main blade above his head and slashed at invisible enemies. Even though the blade was considerably smaller and less heavy than the full one, it was still 2 feet taller than Naruto. However, even with the height problem, he showed remarkable skill for a beginner. He constantly trained with the blade every day, and it showed in his handling of it. It was the start of the new academy semester, so Lee was currently at the academy. Every morning they would get up and train with Guy until Lee had to go to school. Then Naruto would train with his sword, and sometimes he would go flying. He did that far away from the village. Both of them had improved greatly in the short time of training with Guy. They were probably at genin level with their taijutsu, which was great given that Naruto was 7 years old and Lee was 8. Like the Hokage had said, Naruto wasn't attending the academy, he was learning and training constantly, sadly not learning any history or certain other things they taught at the academy. But for Naruto those things weren't important. He pulled the swords that surrounded him out of the ground and attached them together. He took out some cloth-like bandages and wrapped them around the blade. He hefted the large sword over his back and went on his way. Naruto was making his way out of the training ground when he stopped. He looked over by a tree where a small girl with bluish-black hair sat. She had her arms over her eyes and appeared to be sobbing. Naruto seemed to have a lot of luck when it came to finding upset people. He silently walked over to her. "Hey, are you all right?" asked Naruto. The girl looked up and on the side of her face it looked like she had been hit. She had pale pupil-less eyes. Who a or you? She managed to stutter out. She was still crying badly and he needed to calm her down. He smiled at the girl and removed his glasses. He had discovered some time ago that their appearance could be soothing, but if he got angry they could be intimidating. She looked into his eyes and seemed to be calmed down slightly. "I'm Uzumaki Naruto, what's your name?" he asked kindly. The girl smiled slightly. I'm Hyuga Hinata," she said. Naruto nodded and sat beside her. "Well, tell me, Hinata, why are you here crying? You look old enough to be at the academy, shouldn't you be there right now?" said Naruto. "Why you say see, normally I would be at the AAC Academy today, but my father kept me home to train," she managed. Hinata then looked down at the ground and some tears managed to fall out. "I didn't do so good and well, he hit me and called me weak." Naruto looked at her as if deciding something. "Hinata, will you come have some ramen with me? I want to hear more," said Naruto. Hinata looked surprised but nodded. The two of them made their way to Naruto's favorite place in the world, Ikirika Ramen SP. Even with her stuttering, Naruto managed to learn a great deal about all the things that had happened in Hinata's life. About how she was kidnapped at 4 but rescued, and about her mother dying giving birth to her sister who was now 2 years old. She even stopped stuttering as much, but she still did. "You see, I'm weak," said Hinata. "Hinata, is there something you want to protect?" asked Naruto. Hinata looked at him unsure of what he meant. "Is there something important to you that you want to stop anything bad from happening to them?" Hinata didn't take long to think about it before she responded. "My sister," she said. "I think about what my dad will put her through since I'm not strong enough, she's only 2 right now. That usually gives me strength but my father gives me such a cold gaze that I lose that strength." Naruto seemed to consider her words for a bit. "Hinata, does your father scare you?" asked Naruto. Hinata nodded. Does he look scary? Asked Naruto. Once again Hinata nodded. Do you have a picture of him? Questioned the blonde. Hinata dug through a pocket before pulling out a small wallet-sized frame with a picture in it. In the picture Naruto saw 3 people. The first one was Hinata looking much smaller, the second was a tall woman who resembled her greatly, and the third one was her father. He had what Naruto could only assume was a smile on his face. Naruto removed a piece of paper from his pocket and took out a crayon that the ramen stand had on the counter for little kids to draw with while they wait. He then started drawing something. Hinata, whenever your father starts to scare you, picture him looking like this, said Naruto, holding up the picture. Hinata instantly giggled and it started to escalate into a laughter. Naruto could tell that it had the affect he wanted, as she looked happy. The picture resembled Hinata's father, but his head was bigger and his lower jaw was twice as big as it should be. His eyes were huge and he somewhat now resembled a frog. He had what could only be described as a scowl on his face, but with it as big as it was, it looked funny instead of intimidating. And for added affect, he drew steam coming out of his ears. The Kyuubi sat in her cage looking out at the real world with mild interest. What is the brat doing wasting his time with a pathetic girl like that? Said the Kyuubi. However, when she saw the picture, she quickly had to cover her mouth to stop the giggle and looked away. Pointless. The Kyuubi turned a slight shade of red from embarrassment even though no one saw it. Hinata just continued to laugh at the picture. Hinata, use this to get stronger. I don't want you to slack off now that your father doesn't scare you, said Naruto. Hinata stopped laughing and nodded. Protect your sister. Naruto got up and left the girl to do what she had to do. Naruto had gone home and changed his clothing so no one would recognize him as he went to the Hokage's office. He had heard several people complain and try to stop him from going there. He now wore a full dark robe and complete black underneath. It had silver lining on the edge of the zippered up front, creating some extravagant design. He pulled the hood over his face, completely concealing him. For a real visual, it's the cloak of Organization 13 from Kingdom Hearts 2. He then strapped his large blade to his back and removed his sunglasses. He found that it gave him an eerie look with glowing eyes, but you couldn't see the face. And because of all the slight changes he had made, which he normally kept hidden, no one would even come close to guessing it was him. Naruto walked up to the guards positioned at the front of the Hokage's doors. Excuse me, the Hokage is expecting me, could you let me in? Said Naruto. May we ask who you are? Said the guard. Just tell him some guy is here with a black hood, he'll know who I am, said Naruto. The guard looked a little suspicious but disappeared to get the Hokage. He poofed back no more than 15 seconds later and gave the nod to let him in. The old man sat behind his desk waiting patiently for him to sit down. Naruto walked up to the seat and did just that. Hello, old man, said Naruto with a smile. The Hokage smiled back. He loved that when Naruto was in a good mood he would call him that and drop any sort of endearment like Hokage-sama. So Naruto, what brings you here? Said the Hokage. I was just wondering how long until you let me into the academy. I am confident that I could pass it now, said Naruto. And you probably could, but I would rather you stay with your age group, not to mention that I want you training, said the old man. Listen, Naruto, you probably won't be entered into the academy until near the final year. Naruto looked slightly upset but got over it quickly. Fine, said Naruto, not too upset. There are reasons for this, Naruto, said the Hokage. Not to mention I have several things I want you to do with this time. Naruto looked at him quizzically. What do you mean? Asked Naruto. Allow me to explain something, Naruto, said the old Hokage. Many people learn many jutsu but they never really master any of them. What I am about to do is teach you a few jutsu and over the next few years master every aspect of them. I want you to know why they do what they do, how to use them effectively, and even improve upon them in your style. Naruto was a little shocked at his task but at the same time excited. He had mastered the art of hand seals to a degree and had fairly good control over his chakra. So far all the Hokage had Naruto do was master using his sword and training his body. Now he had jutsu to work with. The Hokage threw him a scroll. Now the first 3 are basic academy jutsu, I just want you to learn those. However the next 4 are considered advanced Naruto, I want you to learn everything about them and use them in mastery at least by the time you take the Chunin exam. Naruto looked down at the scroll and read the advanced ones. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Doryuden no Jutsu, Earth Dragon Missile, Dorotomo Doden Kekai, Earth Barrier Clay Prison. Naruto was excited. He then looked at the last jutsu and noticed it was a sword technique. Mikazuki no Mai, Dance of the Crescent Moon. Now Naruto, before you go I have a small favor to ask, said the Hokage. Naruto looked over at him. Could you please bring this to the Uchiha compound? You don't have to show who you are, just give it to them saying it's from the Hokage. Naruto smiled and grabbed the scroll that was meant for the Uchihas. He then jumped out of the Hokage's window and landed on a nearby rooftop. He then headed in the direction he was sure the Uchiha compound was in. Naruto jumped and ran as hard as he could. It was considerably hard given his gravity seals, but he was still moving at a decent pace. When Naruto saw the sign that read Uchiha District, he didn't give a thought to anything. However, once he entered, he knew something was wrong. The smell of blood and death lingered in the air. Once Naruto rounded a corner, he knew why. Bodies littered the streets. Everyone there appeared to have been murdered in cold blood. Naruto ran through the complex looking for survivors. It only got worse as he went on. But then he felt a faint chakra signature. He immediately took off to it. He ended up running through a large mansion. The chakra signature that was faint at first was pulsing strongly from the other side of the doors. Naruto opened them without a second's hesitation. What he saw surprised him. A boy only in his teens stood over a dead man. He was currently in front of a woman who was on her knees with tears in her eyes. As the man rose his sword to strike down the woman, Naruto reacted instantly. He grabbed some kunai and lunged them at the man. He turned and blocked them instantly. Naruto ran as fast as could towards them, throwing more projectiles which the man was deflecting, not giving him the chance to kill the women. Finally Naruto got close. The man, not paying him too much mind, tried to bring his sword down to kill the women again. Naruto was in front of him and blocked the blow with his huge blade. Even though he blocked it, it created a small wind blade and cut open Naruto's shoulder. Naruto didn't even flinch, as he was no stranger to pain. He used all the strength he possessed to throw the man back. Itachi. What's going on? Shouted out a boy with raven black hair from the door of the room. Sasuke, run. Itachi killed the whole clan, shouted the women from behind Naruto. Mom, said Sasuke in shock at her bloodied state. It's true, Sasuke, said the man known as Itachi. I killed them all. Why? Said Sasuke in an unbelieving tone. To test myself, to see what I was capable of, said Itachi in a cold tone. And you? He looked over at the shrouded form of Naruto. All he could see was his glowing blue eyes. I don't know who you are, but you are in my way, Tsukiyomi. Naruto felt a slight tingle, but then his glowing white-blue chakra swept around him and his eyes glowed with even more intensity. Itachi took a step back. I am impossible. There is no way to escape the world of Tsukiyomi, said Itachi, shocked. He then smirked. Fine, it looks like you all get to live today, as I must go. The man who would be known as the traitor of the Uchiha clan left. Naruto felt completely drained and he didn't want to be there. He decided to leave to get the Hokage. Mom, shouted out Sasuke as he ran towards her and hugged her on the verge of tears. Naruto was so tired that he dragged his sword on the ground as he left. Wait, shouted out Sasuke's mother. Naruto turned around and both of them were taken aback by his eyes. The female Uchiha's eyes wandered to Naruto's wounded shoulder. She didn't know that it had healed up after the chakra swept around him, but the bloody portion of his clothing still made one worry. Thank you, she said, bowing on the ground. Naruto nodded and ran out of there as fast as he could. The next day the word was out, almost the entire Uchiha clan was dead. Word had spread how a mysterious stranger had saved little Sasuke and his mother. "Are you sure you don't want anyone to know it was you?" said Sarutobi beside Naruto. Naruto nodded. "Look at them," said Naruto at villagers as they referred to the stranger as a hero. "They lost an important clan, some even lost friends. The only thing they have to be happy about is that a hero saved some. But if they learn that that hero was me, they might take it wrong, and any happiness they might have will be gone." Sarutobi stared at Naruto. A silent tear fell down the old man's cheek. "You may become the greatest hero this town will never know." Two best friends lied on the grass under the starry night sky. The summer night air was warm but not hot, and the scene was tranquil. "So Naruto, this is finally the year you joined the Leaf Academy," said a 12-year-old Lee. Naruto nodded beside him. "Well, with the way the final test works, the class you'll be in should be taking the final exam in 6 months. Mine will be taking it a few days after the start of the semester, and then I'll be a genin." My confident aren't we?" said Naruto with a sheepish grin. Lee snorted. "My genin ninjutsu suck, but my taijutsu is only rivaled by yours," said Lee. "And once I am a genin, I will only get stronger." Naruto nodded as he looked into the night sky. Despite the fact it was dark out and no one could see him, he still wore his shades out of habit. "I know you'll get stronger, Lee," said Naruto. "And once you're a genin, you and me will be the ultimate duo," said Lee, pointing his fists in the air. Lee will be on different teams," said Naruto with a sweat drop. "Oh yeah, I forgot," said Lee, rubbing the back of his head. "Well then, when we are chunin." Naruto sat up from his position and looked at his friend. He was glad Lee had taken his advice and decided not to dress like their father figure guy. Lee had bandages wrapped around his hands and ankles. The ones over his ankles covered his weights. He sported long black pants and a black long-sleeve shirt with a V-neck cut. Once again Naruto was glad for being able to tuck him out of getting his hair cut like guys as well. He had a short ponytail and the front of his hair was pulled back except for a few stray hairs that fell forward. Over the years Naruto and Lee had grown very close to Guy. They saw him every day, and even when they weren't training with him he would show up for the occasional ramen bowl with them. Life was finally good for Naruto. He still got death glares wherever he went, but that took a back seat to how happy he was spending his time training and pulling the occasional prank with Lee. And now he was finally going to go to the academy to become a shinobi of the Leaf. Iruka sat at his desk patiently. He had been with this class since the beginning and had seen them grow, and in 6 months most of them would be leaving. He glanced over at one of his top students, Hyuga Hinata. He didn't really know what to say about the girl. At first she was shy and messed up a lot of the time in class, but then one day she just seemed to be good. She was currently a competitor for Rookie of the Year along with young Uchiha Sasuke. Sasuke was the strongest male in the class and Hinata was the strongest female. The best academically was Haruno Sakura. She was smart and quick-witted but lacked in strength. She was one of Sasuke's fangirls with her friend Ino. Both girls were practically at each other all the time, but there was still a deep undertone of friendship. They were both fairly good friends with Hinata as well. Choji and Shikamaru were two of the best friends in class. They were both average shinobi, but Shikamaru proved that he was a genius in strategy. Shino was quiet and reserved while his usual desk mate Kiba was loud and brash. Overall Iruka loved his class. They were entertaining and he knew that they would make fine shinobi. This year looked promising and he was looking forward to a great semester until he read the new addition to the class. Uzumaki Naruto. Now Iruka hated the Kyuubi with a passion, but he was willing to give Naruto the benefit of the doubt. The Hokage had made that clear to him in an earlier meeting. The boy had not done anything to earn his scorn as of yet, but many teachers still regarded the boy with hate. He was not looking forward to the negative attention his class would be getting. "No, today I'll sit next to him forehead," said Ino. "Dream on, Ino pig, I will," said Sakura. Both of them were making their way to the desk when they noticed one thing. Random fangirls next to Sasuke already filled up the seats. Both girls looked at each other, then they looked down. They walked silently over to their friend Hinata. You couldn't get next to Sasuke? Asked Hinata with a smile. Both the girls nodded. Sorry for you guys then. I don't get you, Hinata. You're probably the second best student in class, and more or less have a chance as Sasuke-kun. Why don't you go after him? Asked Ino. Hinata put her finger to her chin. Well then I wouldn't be able to be friends with you guys, said Hinata. That's a stupid reason, said Sakura taking a seat next to Hinata. Not really, I just don't have any interest in him, said Hinata. Both of the girls' jaws dropped to the floor. You're weird, Hinata, said Ino and Sakura in unison. Hey, could you to keep it down, I'm trying to sleep, said a lazy genius. Ino and Sakura sent him death glares. Troublesome. Choji, who was eating beside his friend, patted him on the back. Yeah, you're right, buddy, said Kiba to his faithful pet, who gave a bark back in amusement. Okay class, let's settle down, said Iruka. We have all been together for a long time now, and today we will receive a new student. You can come in now. As Iruka said that, the door opened. A boy with sun-blonde hair and black sunglasses walked in. His hair was the same mess that their fourth Hokage was famous for. He wore a short-sleeved white shirt which showed surprisingly well-toned body for someone his age, and black cargo pants. On his side he had two fingerless gloves with metal knuckles attached to his belt. And if one looked closely, he appeared to have a black diamond tattoo on his right shoulder. Hello, I'm Uzumaki Naruto, he said, greeting the class with a warm smile. The effects were instant to a few select kids in the class. Shikamaru, that's him, the one I've told you about, said Choji, a little excited. Yeah, he does look like you said. Wonder if he is any good at shogi? Asked Shikamaru. Sakura stared ahead in shock. Any immaturity that had shown when she was just swooning over the Uchiha was gone in recognition of the boy. She would never forget the one person other than Ino who had been kind to her. In fact, Ino had even admitted that the boy was the one that told her not to hesitate in helping her next time she was picked on. However, the feeling of shock was replaced with the slight bit of worry, remembering her mother's words. Be careful with that boy, echoed the memory. Ino recognized him as well. She had met the boy briefly, but in that moment she learned all she needed to know about the boy's personality. He was most likely one of the kindest people you could meet. Both girls stared at each other and then turned to Hinata to discuss things with their friend, as she was always good with advice. But what they saw surprised them even more. Hinata stared unblinkingly at the boy with her eyes wide. A faint blush was on her cheeks, and then they heard her say it. Naruto-kun is here, she said in a silent, happy voice. She almost seemed to revert back to the shy girl they had heard she was at the start of the academy. Well, Naruto, you can have a seat. Iruka was interrupted when another Chunin walked into the room. Excuse me, Iruka, but the Hokage needs to see you, said the Chunin. Oh, okay. Mizuki, take over while I'm gone, said Irake. The teacher known as Mizuki gave a warm smile as the teacher left, but as the door closed, that smile turned to an evil smirk. One fully directed at Naruto. Almost every student picked up on this but didn't say anything. Uzumaki, go to the seat at the corner now, said Mizuki with venom. Most students visibly cringed. Never had they seen their second sensei act this way. Naruto didn't pay it any mind and silently walked up to his seat. Almost the entire class period Mizuki asked Naruto questions no one in the class could possibly know. To the class's astonishment and Mizuki's disapproval, he got all of them right. Alright, we're going out for the taijutsu sparring now, said Mizuki in slight irritation as he directed the class outside. The class lined up to spar with another one of their classmates as their taijutsu instructor graded them. When Naruto's name was called, they saw the same evil smirk appear on his face that had on Mizuki's. The bullies in the class faces lightened up, as it appeared they could pick on this kid without the teachers caring. Your opponent will be Mizuki-sensei, said the Chunin. Mizuki stepped forward looking pleased. Some students were surprised as they all sparred with one another. Mizuki took his stance. Hope you're ready, demon brat, he said. As the instructor gave the signal to start the match, Mizuki charged forward. He threw a punch, but what happened next surprised everybody. Quick as lightning, Naruto tied wire around the hand that was thrust out. He immediately moved to Mizuki's side and looped another part of the wire around his other hand. He rolled under Mizuki and wrapped it around one foot, and then he jumped onto his back and tied it to his neck. It had all happened so fast no one knew what was going on. Mizuki was choking due to the wire. Whenever he brought his hands up trying to reach his neck, the wire pulled on his neck, pulling it back more and lifting his foot up. When he moved his neck forward, his hand would move down due to the wire that was attached to each other, creating this cycle. The instructor sneered at this. "I'm sorry, Uzumaki, but you fail this portion of class due to you used a weapon," said the instructor. All were surprised at the declaration, as many of the students had used weapons. But some kids smirked at the obvious dislike that the teachers had for the boy. As a teacher released Mizuki from the wire, something inside the man snapped. A loud smacking sound was heard. Everyone who was present eyes widened as the blonde boy was struck in the face by a punch. They were even more surprised as Mizuki continued to hit him. "How do like that, demon?" shouted out Mizuki. Naruto was taking every hit, not even attempting to block. Even as he was hit, he showed no signs of pain. "I'll make you suffer, you hell spawn." "Am I Mizuki wa? What are you doing? This is against the Hokage," said the shocked instructor. Every student there visibly cringed as the boy was pummeled. "Mizuki, stop this before you get into trouble." "Shut up, you want this as much as I do." Mizuki said this. He took out a kunai and stabbed forward straight for the boy. A few girls screamed and looked away. Several instructors ran forward to stop him, but they wouldn't make it in time. Blood splattered the ground, and Mizuki's eyes widened. Naruto had taken the kunai straight through the hand and was now grabbing Mizuki's wrist. Blood flowed from the deep wound, and then a snap was heard as the boy broke the wrist. Mizuki grunted in severe pain, and Naruto ran up his chest and kicked his jaw. Mizuki was sent flying through the air. Naruto jumped onto his chest and was riding him to the ground. Just before the body hit, Naruto pushed off his chest with his feet, sending Mizuki slamming into the pavement, creating a huge crater. The Chunin was instantly knocked out. The whole training field was silent as students from upper and lower classes stared on at Naruto. Blood still flowed from his hand onto the ground. Naruto still showed no signs of pain as he turned around and walked to the outdoor sink. He grabbed the kunai and pulled it out of his hand. He then dropped it to the ground while he washed his bloody hand. He took out some bandages that were in his ninja equipment pouch. Naruto then proceeded to wrap his hand. "Naruto-kun!" was shouted across the field. Naruto turned and saw Lee running up to him. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, this is nothing you should see the other guy," said Naruto with a smile. Instantly the tension that was in the air was deflated as the teachers told their students to go back to class. The taijutsu instructor walked up to Naruto and looked at him in the eye. I'm sorry that Mizuki took it that far," he said, looking down. "It's okay. I let it happen because I thought he just needed to get the worst of his anger out on me now before later," said Naruto. The instructor stared at the boy. "You may not believe me, but I just want to protect Konoha. You don't have to try to hinder me, as I will do all I can." The instructor was in a slight state of shock at this. His mind was screaming at the demon, but his heart and instincts told him something different. He was probably the second most official person over the academy, so he would spread the word. "Do not mistreat Uzumaki, Naruto." The whole class was discussing what had just taken place. None of them could believe that Mizuki would do that. "Can you believe what just happened?" Ino practically shouted this in Sakura's ear. Sakura looked up at her friend and remembered her mother's words from long ago. "He's dangerous," replied Sakura. "Yeah, but he was awesome the way he took out Mizuki-sensei," said Kiba, joining in on the conversation. "How troublesome," said Shikamaru looking over at his friend Choji who had stopped eating. Hey man, don't look so worried, I'm sure he's fine. Yeah, I know, it's just that ever since that day I've wanted to meet that kid again and his friend, said Choji looking down. They were both so nice and I think maybe they could be my friends as well. Shikamaru looked at his friend thoughtfully. He knew that he was Choji's only real friend. Heck, the same could be true the other way around. But many people still wanted to practice with Shikamaru, for the better part many just ignored Choji. The attention of everyone in the room focused on a blonde boy as he walked through the door. Iruka immediately stood up to meet the boy. Naruto, I heard about what Mizuki did. Are you alright? Asked the instructor. Naruto just smiled. Yeah, I'm fine. I mean, come on, we're gonna be shinobi, we all got to get stabbed sometime, said Naruto holding up his bandaged hand laughing. Despite the situation, everyone in the classroom erupted in a series of giggles and laughs. Well, Naruto, if you want you can sit somewhere else, said Iruka. Naruto was about to say it was okay in the back, when Iruka responded, on second thought, why don't you go sit in the seat the third row above Hinata? Naruto didn't say anything as he made his way up the steps and took his seat. He looked over at his desk mates. And a smile spread across Naruto's lips. How's it going, Choji? Asked Naruto. Choji seemed shocked. Yo, you remember me? Said Choji. Naruto nodded with a grin. Yeah, who's your friend? Asked Naruto pointing at Shikamaru. This is Shikamaru, he's my best friend, I met him after I met you, responded Choji. Shikamaru gave a nod in Naruto's direction. And class continued on. Naruto would talk to Choji and Shikamaru, more or less ignoring Iruka. He even played a game of shogi with Shikamaru. The boy was exceedingly good at it and it ended up in a draw. Choji, who had watched, was in shock as no one ever tied or beat Shikamaru in shogi. The entire class period Naruto felt a set of eyes on him, but he chose to ignore them. However, he knew that it wouldn't be long before the eyes made themselves known. As class ended, Naruto made his way for the door. He was about to leave when a hand grabbed his shoulder. Fight me, said a raven-haired boy. Naruto turned around and smiled. I'm sorry, but no, said Naruto. The boy's eyes narrowed. Why? He asked. Because I injured my hand and it would not be a fair fight, said Naruto. The boy seemed to accept this. As he walked past Naruto, he stopped for a moment. I want to battle you in a 1 week, do you agree? Said the boy. Naruto sighed and nodded. As the raven-haired boy left, Lee walked in. Hey buddy, how you doing? Said Lee cheerfully. I saw that your youthful passion guided you in your heroic battle with Mizuki-sensei. Naruto slammed his fist against the back of Lee's head. Lee, stop that, you know that the way guy talks freaks me out, said Naruto laughing. But anyway, let's go get some ramen. Of course, Naruto-kun, today I shall finally beat you and eat more bowls, said Lee, and they both left the school to get some ramen. Iruka had been watching the boys while he put his papers away and smiled. It seemed the Hokage was right, Naruto definitely isn't the Kyuubi, thought Iruka. Sasuke walked through the door to his home with a small smile on his face. My, did something good happen today, Sasuke? Asked Makoto. Sasuke looked at the woman and smiled. She was probably the only person that would see his true smile. Yes, there is a new strong student that came to class, said Sasuke. He agreed to spar with me in a week. Makoto let out a small sigh and shook her head. Well, who is this new student? She asked. His name is Uzumaki Naruto, said Sasuke. Makoto looked a little surprised. Ah, yes, he is strong, said Makoto, closing her eyes. Be careful with him, all right, honey. Sasuke looked a little curious but nodded anyway. In a dark room, two figures stood. The smell of decay and death was around them. You bastard! Shouted out one of the figures as he charged the other. The other dark shadowy figure blocked his thrust and threw him to the other side of the room. The first figure spun in the air and pushed off the far wall with his feet. He flew towards his opponent, throwing punch after punch. But the other was easily dodging them. Why? shouted out the still punching figure. Why did you make me kill them? There was such pain in his voice that it would hurt anyone to listen. What are you doing, boy? Asked the figure. You are wanted now, they will come and try to kill you, but I won't let them. You are going to serve me. No, shouted out the figure. Who are you? Why did you control me and then let me live expecting me to serve you loyally? I will kill you. I will never listen to you. I wanted your power and potential, said the figure in a dark voice. You will serve me, and to answer one of your questions, you will not have a choice. There was a flash of bright light and the figure screamed in utter agony. Naruto jumped up from his sleep panting heavily. A cold sweat covered his body as he looked around the room. He let out a sigh. The dream, he thought. Every now and then Naruto would have this dream. He wasn't sure when exactly they had started, but he was pretty sure he was around 7 when the first one happened. He had this dream or a similar one at least once a month, sometimes more. He had told the Hokage, but that didn't do too much good as he did not have the answers. Naruto didn't know who the figures were as they were always engrossed in shadow. He knew it wasn't a normal dream, but he didn't care. It didn't affect him physically or mentally. It was just another thing he grew to accept. 1 week had gone by in a flash and Iruka had gotten wind of the spar that Sasuke had wanted. Iruka decided to make it educational and approved of it so everyone could watch and take notes. Iruka had heard how the boy had first defeated Mizuki, so told them they were not allowed to use weapons. The two boys stood across from one another and took their stance. Naruto unclipped the two black fingerless gloves from his belt. He pulled them on and flexed his hand muscles. He put one arm behind his back and put a solid fist in front of him. Iruka looked at the boy's stance a little surprised that he knew that style. He wrote it off as things he needs to learn about the boy. Sasuke charged forward. He dropped to the ground and tried to kick Naruto's feet out from under him. Naruto jumped over the kick and brought his single fist down. He went right past Sasuke's head and slammed the blow into the pavement. Naruto stood frozen in that position. Sasuke looked back at where the fist had struck and was a little more than surprised at the sight of a rather deep fist indentation. Sasuke rolled back and tried to kick Naruto in the face. Naruto spun to the side to avoid it. The young Uchiha threw blow after blow, but Naruto would block or dodge with little effort. Naruto finally went on the attack as he his fist back. Sasuke looked confident that he could block it. So he brought his arms up to shield his face. The blow was like a bull ramming him in the arms. Instantly Sasuke's guard was broken and he was sent flying back into the ground. It was hard for Sasuke to move as he looked up at the blonde who walked towards him. Naruto stood in front of him with a smile on his face, and stretched out his hand to help Sasuke up. Sasuke regrettably took it and was lifted up. That was a very good spar, you two, said Iruka. Now can anyone explain to me what just happened? Sasuke got his kicked, shouted out Kiba. The boys in the class laughed, but the girls shot him death glares. No, not quite, Kiba. Can anyone tell me why Sasuke's guard failed? Asked Iruka. Everyone looked clueless. In the field you may be faced with an opponent whose physical strength is not obvious. Naruto had a lot more strength behind that punch than you may think possible for someone his age and size. Many stared wide-eyed at Naruto. As the class moved back inside, Naruto pulled Sasuke aside for a second. This is only a suggestion, but you may want to train with weights on, said Naruto. Sasuke looked at him curiously. Sasuke, you may not want to hear this, but I held back a bit. Sasuke's jaw nearly hit the floor. How? Asked Sasuke. You have good style and decent speed, but weights will help you immensely, said Naruto as he walked away. Class ended like always with everybody asleep at Iruka's lecture. As they were leaving, Iruka took note that Lee once again came for Naruto and the two of them went out for ramen. Iruka finished up his work and decided ramen didn't sound half bad. When he arrived there, he was a little surprised to see that Naruto and Lee were at the same stand. Ah, Iruka-san, it's been a while, said the old man from behind the counter. Yes, it has, get me the usual, said Iruka taking a seat beside Lee. So Naruto, how long have you eating here? Almost 8 years now, said Naruto. Iruka was a little surprised, he had never seen him before. Yep, him and Lee are my two best customers, said the old man. Naruto and Lee smiled widely at this. Huh, interesting, muttered Iruka. Sasuke walked into his home a little depressed. I take it the spar didn't go too well, said Makoto. I got beat pretty bad. Naruto said I should probably use some weights, said Sasuke depressed. He clenched his fist. I thought I was strong, but at this rate I'll never. Before Sasuke could finish the last part, a pair of arms wrapped around him. Sasuke, you are strong at your own pace, said Makoto in a soothing voice. And if you want weights, I got a special pair meant only for an Uchiha. Sasuke's head perked up at this. Hinata woke to the morning sun with a smile on her face. Today was the day of her genin exam. She exited her room and headed downstairs. She passed her father and promptly ignored him. Ever since Naruto gave her words and advice of encouragement all those years ago, her father no longer scared her. She learned that he would never have anything nice to say, so she just ignored him completely. She wanted to get to the academy quickly, so she grabbed an apple to eat and headed for the door. She was about to leave when a shout caught her attention. Hinata Nichan, shouted out a teary-eyed Hanabi running towards her. Her little sister grabbed onto her leg tight. Don't go. Hinata sighed and then smiled. They did this almost every morning. Hanabi, don't worry, I'll be back in a couple of hours, said Hinata. Hanabi wiped away a couple of tears in her eyes. Promise? She asked. Promise, said Hinata, still smiling. Hanabi beamed at her and let go of her leg. Will you help me practice when you get back? Asked Hanabi. Hinata nodded and then left. The small 5-year-old girl walked away from the door with a huge smile on her face. She wasn't looking where she was going and bumped into something. Hanabi looked up and saw the lingering figure of her father in front of her. He helped her back up and gave a small smile. Hanabi was surprised at this, as he never smiled. He turned and began to walk away when he stopped. Good luck in your training today, said Heishi. And then he continued to walk away from her. Naruto walked down the street sporting a loose orange tank top and baggy black pants. He was wearing his usual shades as well, and had his fingerless gloves on his hands instead of attached to his waist belt. He had a bright smile on his face, something that he only had when he was with Lee away training from the village. Today he would be a genin of the village. He was most curious as to what team he would be assigned to. The blonde walked into his classroom and took his seat. Not long after he had arrived, Hyuga Hinata walked in. She walked up to her desk located below Naruto's. He caught her gaze on him for a second and he gave her a warm smile. She smiled back for a moment and took her seat, turning her back to him. If he could see her face, he would notice an intense blush on it. Slowly the class filled up with the students and finally Iruka entered. He took his spot at head of the class and faced them. Today will be the final test to see whether or not you become shinobi, said Iruka. Your names will be called and you will perform the Bushin no Jutsu. You must create at least 3 clones to pass. Then you must demonstrate use of weapons with kunai and finally a taijutsu test. Slowly one by one names were called and students left to be tested. To Naruto's great surprise, very few were passing so far. It was only up to 5 students who had passed. Finally Naruto heard it. Uzumaki Naruto, said Iruka. Naruto walked into the testing room and stood in front of his teacher. He successfully created 3 clones and without the use of hand seals, which Iruka happily gave him extra credit for. He then passed the taijutsu and kunai test with full marks. He left the room with a new leaf forehead protector. In Naruto's mind, a red head was sitting on the ground rocking back and forth. Bored, she said. Sue bored. The demon looked out her prison to the window that showed her everything outside. So those are the tests, huh? The Kyuubi scoffed at this. No wonder I was able to kill so many so easily. That test is pathetic. After all the students had finished taking the test, only 9 had passed. For some reason, Iruka seemed rather pleased with this number. Tomorrow you will be grouped into teams of 3. You will then meet your instructor and begin your career as shinobi of the leaf, said Iruka. Class was dismissed and Naruto went out to eat. He went to his usual spot in the ramen stand. Hey Naruto-kun, no Lee today? Asked the old man. Nope, he's on a mission, said Naruto. Lee had been a genin for nearly 6 months now. His sensei, much to his delight, was none other than their taijutsu instructor Guy. Naruto hadn't met his 2 teammates but knew one was a Hyuga and the other was some girl named Tenten. Naruto began to exit the ramen stand after eating, smiling. Why does he do that? Asked the Kyuubi. That smile is ridiculous, besides they'll never accept him. The Kyuubi was still extremely sore that Naruto had turned down her offer for power. In all her years as a demon and watching the human world, no one had ever said no to power when they had as much hatred as the boy should have possessed. By all logic he should have said yes, but he didn't, and that greatly annoyed her. Not to mention putting up a barrier that completely cut of her sending him chakra or even talking to him. Goddammit, I'm so bored. She shouted out. The Kyuubi slammed against her prison only to receive an electric shock. She growled. Naruto went on his way home, having absolutely no clue what was going on inside his mind. You can't be serious, said Kakashi, looking at the Hokage with an accusing glare. You want me to train the Kyuubi? Sarutobi was more than a little surprised at this outburst. He had picked Kakashi because he had never shown any open hostility towards Naruto. The old man took on a more serious face. Kakashi, he's not the one that took your sensei, said Sarutobi. You will train him. This is a direct order. Fine, mumbled Kakashi. But mark my words, if I see even the slightest hint of Kyuubi or the seal breaking, I'm taking him out. Before the Hokage could respond, Kakashi left his office, slamming the door behind him. The Hokage swiveled in his chair and faced the window. Kakashi, Arashi would be very disappointed in you, thought the old man. Naruto had gone home and retrieved his blades. They were all in a large holster that held all 6 blades at once. The main blade and the hollow blade were crossing each other on his upper back, forming an X. Both his serrated blades crossed one another on his lower back. And finally the switchblades were folded up and on each of his sides. He walked out of his apartment and headed towards the training ground. When he arrived, he found he was the only one there and would have no problem training. He took out the main blade and went through the many different steps. He would switch off his swords, never stopping as he continued to hack away at his invisible opponents. He stopped and returned the sword to his back and turned to see a brown-haired figure hiding behind the bushes. Hinata exited the academy building and was about to head home to see her sister when someone tapped her on the shoulder. She turned around and saw the face of a branch member of her clan. She smiled at him and he smiled back. She was very well liked among the branch members of her clan. Hinata-sama, the council and Hiashi-sama wish to see you urgently, he stated. Hinata let out a sigh and left. Hinata entered the dark room that the clan elders held meetings in. It was hard to see, but she could make out several figures. One of them was her father. Hinata, said her father in an angry tone. It has come to my attention that you tied for Rookie of the Year with an Uchiha. Hinata used the trick she always did and pictured her father looking the funny way he was in her mind. Any fear that he inspired completely unaffected her. Many in the room cowered only slightly under Hiashi's tone and obvious intent. However, a smile formed on the elders' lips as they all watched Hinata stand there facing her father with no fear. He scowled at her. As such, to test you, you must defeat all the branch members that I have selected, he said. This is the only way to prove that you are not completely useless. A few branch members got up and walked towards her. Their ages varied, some were just a little older than she was. She looked at them and noticed the extremely hesitant look in all of their eyes. None of them wanted to fight her. She looked on and her eyes widened, as several were about to object to her father. She acted immediately and attacked one of them, sending him to the floor. She sent the rest of them a look and they all understood. If they opposed her father, their seals would be activated. And while the few that were going to take it knew they could endure, Hiashi would most likely activate the seals of those that were unprepared. Once again, the Hyuga heiress had proved herself in the eyes of the branch members. They all took their stances and began to fight. Hinata charged and effectively disengaged her opponent's right arm. She slammed her elbow into the branch member's stomach. She channeled chakra through her arm to the elbow, which caused her opponent to explode backwards. Two opponents came up behind her, but with her all-seeing eyes she was ready. She slammed both her elbows into their stomachs, and as they doubled over she nailed them in the jaw with her open palms, effectively knocking them out. The elders watched the scene with great enthusiasm. Everyone in the room understood what the branch members were going to do. They were impressed with how Hinata handled the situation. She managed to save them without defying the council as well as remaining strong. Now she was effectively taking out the branch members with minimal damage being done to them. Hiashi looked away from his daughter. He couldn't stand to see her. Few actually knew why Hiashi was so cold towards his eldest daughter. Many thought it was to make her strong, but Hiashi knew that the reason was of her almost exact resemblance to his late wife. As she grew older, the resemblance only grew, not just in body but in personality as well. It hurt him to look at her, so he did all he could to make the pain go away and found anger worked best. Hinata finished the last branch member the elders called the fight. Hinata had been hit several times, but she would be alright. The branch members were already picking themselves up. Her father glared at her and surprisingly she sent a glare back. "If you will excuse me, I'm already late to practice with my sister, she's probably worried," said Hinata. Hiyashi's eyes widened at this. He had forgotten that Hanabi would always see her older sister after she was done with school. He also knew how impressionable she was at her age and what she was probably thinking right now. Hanabi sat near the front door crying. Her sister was an hour late, never had she taken this long. "Where are you?" she sobbed. "You said you'd come and help me, you promised." The little girl spoke to herself. She was upset. But then a thought entered her mind, one that involved her sister being in trouble. She immediately took off out the door. She ran out the Hyuga compound gates. Hanabi wondered why the guards weren't there. She didn't know that they were currently testing her sister. She ran across the town in the direction she hoped the academy was. Before she knew it, she was in the forest training ground, completely lost. She was about to cry when she heard a noise. She instantly ran towards it. She hid behind a tree to see a blonde-haired boy practicing with a sword. Her eyes widened in fascination as he swung the sword around with grace. He had 3 more swords on his back. And 2, she took note, folded up blades on his sides. His blades mesmerized her as she looked at them. Finally the boy stopped and surprisingly turned to look at her. She was a little worried at first, but then he smiled and she for some reason was happy. "Hey, who are you?" he asked. "Are you lost?" The little girl nodded at this. My name is Hanabi," she trailed off. "I'm looking for my sister." "Ah, your sister you say?" said Naruto. "Who is you sister? Maybe I can help you." "What does she look like?" "Hinata Nichan is bluish black hair that feels like silk. She's about your height and is the bestest prettiest girl ever," she said, raising her hands in the air. "Hinata you say?" said Naruto smiling. "I know her, we go to school together." "Really?" said the small 5-year-old. Naruto nodded. "As a matter of fact, I met her at this training ground a long time ago," said Naruto. Hanabi's eyes widened. "When I met her she was crying." "Why was she crying?" asked Hanabi, worried. "Apparently your father made her really upset," said Naruto. Hanabi looked angry at this as she stomped her foot down. "Daddy is always so mean to Hinata Nichan and I don't know why," she said. "Did you talk to her? Did you make her feel better?" "I like to think I did," said Naruto. She smiled. "Listen, I'm sure your sister is back at your home, how's about I take you back?" Hanabi nodded and took his hand as he led her to her home. Hey mister, what's your name? She asked. My name is Naruto, said Naruto. Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto Nichin has a funny name, said Hanabi smiling. Naruto smiled and was slightly surprised by his new title, but he didn't mind. The two of them made their way through the village. Hanabi took note of the hateful glares sent Naruto's way some of the time. However, after seeing her in his company, they turned to ignore him completely. They arrived at the Hyuga compound not long after, and the effects of her absence were evident. Many Hyuga could be seen running around the compound looking for her. Finally, Hanabi saw the reason she had left. Hinata ran by looking frantic. Hinata Nichan, shouted out Hanabi, running towards her sister. Hinata stopped in her tracks and looked over to see Hanabi running towards her. The little girl grabbed onto her older sister's leg. Where were you? Asked Hanabi. Where was I? I should ask you the same thing. Why did you leave? Asked Hinata. When you didn't come home, I got worried and went to look for you. I got lost, said Hanabi. Hinata let out a sigh and then smiled. I'm sorry, I had a meeting that came up at the last second, said Hinata. Almost all the Hyuga were gathered near Hanabi now, including her father. How did you get back? Naruto Nichin helped me, said Hanabi, pointing over to Naruto, who was leaving. A huge blush instantly erupted onto Hinata's face, a fact that almost every Hyuga took notice of. Naruto-kun, shouted Hinata to get his attention. He turned around and smiled and gave a wave at the Hyuga clan before turning to leave again. Thank you, shouted out Hinata and Hanabi at the same time. The Kyuubi looked out the window to the real world and scowled. It doesn't make any sense, he doesn't even stay for a reward or something, said the Kyuubi. Why did he even bother? With all the members of the clan searching, it would have only taken an hour or so to find her. The Kyuubi decided to go to sleep after that to ponder her thoughts. The next day of the day had come, and now they would all be sorted into teams. Naruto wore what he had yesterday, finally bringing his swords to school with him. He wore his forehead protector around his right bicep. Naruto walked into class and only the 9, including him, that had passed were there. Naruto took a seat and leaned forward on the desk. His serrated swords lightly scrapped on the ground while he sat. Finally Iruka entered. Well, congratulations on making it this far, said Iruka. Sadly, this is the lowest number of graduates we've ever had. Normally you would be tested by Yujunin sensei and only 9 would pass. But seeing as how there are only 9 graduates, this won't be necessary. Many of the students looked at him quizzically. So we are genin, right? Asked Kiba. Yes you are, but the test you would have taken would have been on teamwork, said Iruka. You are on a team for a reason, so work well with them. Speaking of teams, I think it's time I assigned you, said Iruka. Your team number will be that of the squad Yujunin was assigned to. Team 7 is Uchiha Sasuke. Both Ino's and Sakura's heads perked up at that name. Haruno Sakura. Sakura let out a huge cheer at this. And Uzumaki Naruto. Sakura's cheer died down at that name as she looked over at the blonde. He had never done anything to make her afraid, quite the opposite really, but her mother's words hung true as she noticed numerous bad looks adults sent him. Iruka, why is Naruto on our team? I mean, normally it's lowest ninja with highest ninja. Sasuke is a rookie of the year and Naruto beat him, said Sakura. Ino was shocked Sakura would bring that up and she called herself a fangirl. Ino looked at Iruka, as did everyone in the class. The answer is that your grades are based from when you first entered the academy. Naruto came the final year, so his grades are the lowest, and while it may be common sense that he is defiantly not a dead last, that's what his grade says and what we must got on, finished Iruka. But Hinata finished as a rookie of the year as well, couldn't he go on her team? Asked Sakura. Many were surprised at her obvious attempts to get Naruto off her team. Sakura, listen, the Hokage and I went over the details when we made the teams, said Iruka. Your team will function the best if it consists of you, Sasuke, and Naruto. Sakura stopped talking after that, accepting what her teacher said. He finished calling the other teams. Well, wait here for your Junin instructor, said Iruka. They all nodded as he left. Once he was gone, they all started moving about the classroom to talk to one another. I can't believe me, and Choji got Ino, said Shikamaru, annoyed. Choji nodded. I just don't want her making fun of me, said Choji. I wouldn't worry about that stuff, said Naruto. Teammates normally become friends with one another, at least on some level. So does that mean you, Sasuke and Sakura, are going to become best friends? Asked Choji. I said on some level. That doesn't mean we will be best friends, said Naruto. Choji looked at Naruto. In truth, he wanted to be friends with the boy badly. But he never was able to see him outside of the academy. And whenever he'd ask to do something in the academy, Naruto would politely decline, saying he can't. For some reason, it dawned on Choji at that point to ask his parents when he got home. Ino walked up on the other side of the desk and looked at Naruto. Naruto stared back curiously and noticed her eyes travel towards his swords. Say you any good with those things, or are they just for show? Asked Ino. I mean, it's the first time you've brought them, are they new? Did you just get them? I've had them a while and I think I'm pretty good. Why? Asked Naruto. Just curious, said Ino. Naruto smiled and Ino blushed and walked away. Naruto threw her a curious glance. Team 10, said a Junin walking in. Follow me. Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji got up and followed him. Soon Team 8 instructor came and they left as well. Now it was just Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke. Sasuke sat near the window quietly staring out it. Sakura was close to him, out of fangirlism and wanting to keep a distance away from Naruto. Naruto just leaned forward on his desk and fell asleep. It took quite some time before their instructor finally arrived. He had silver hair and his forehead protector over his left eye. He talked to them in a lazy tone. Team 7, meet me on the roof, said the Junin. They exited the classroom and walked up to the roof. Their sensei was already waiting for them. All right, let's introduce ourselves, said the man. My name is Hitaki Kakashi. I don't feel like telling you guys anything else. I have lots of hobbies. Well, that was a waste, we only learned his name, Sakura whispered to her teammates. They nodded in an agreement. Well, you there, brooding boy, said Kakashi. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. The only thing I like is my mother, and I pretty much hate everything else. My only hobby is training, and my only dream is to get stronger and kill a certain somebody, said Sasuke. Well, interesting, said Kakashi. Pinky go. Sakura ignored the comment about her hair and introduced herself. My name is Haruno Sakura. She looked over at Sasuke. I don't like bugs, but that doesn't mean I hate Shino or his clan, and my dreams for the future are, she trailed off and looked at Sasuke again. Right. Shades go, said Kakashi. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. I like to train, ramen, and sparring with my friend Lee and Guy. I don't really have a hobby except training, and my dream, Naruto trailed off as if thinking, is to make everyone happy and protect this village like the fourth. Kakashi slightly winced at the mention of the fourth, but no one noticed. He looked at Naruto as if deciding whether or not to believe his words. Well, you're all unique, and I think if I did test you, you might actually have passed, said Kakashi. Tomorrow meet me at training field 7. I want to test your abilities, but it won't be for anything other than my own knowledge. Kakashi disappeared in a poof of smoke, leaving the others to do what they wanted. Well, I'll see you guys tomorrow, said Naruto. Both his teammates just nodded. Sakura walked off to her home. She had a lot to think about. She opened the door and closed it. Mom, I'm home, shouted Sakura down the hall. Her mother came out of the kitchen to greet her. Sakura, honey, how was your day? Asked Haruno Maya. Well, Mom, why is Naruto so dangerous? Asked Sakura. Maya looked shocked for a second at her daughter's question. I can't say. Why do you ask? Asked Maya. He's on my team, and well, I don't know what to do. I can't exactly ignore him and it's not like he's mean or anything, I just wanted to know more, said Sakura. Yeah, shouted her inner self. I almost forgot about inner Sakura, my bad. Sakura, said Maya. She sighed. I've never heard of him being mean, but, just, be careful, you don't have to be scared of him, just watch him. Sakura nodded and went up to her room. Choji looked at his father Shuza. So dad, do you hate Naruto? Asked Choji. Shuza sighed at his son's question. No, I don't hate him, said Shuza. He has no control over what happened to him. Choji raised an eyebrow at this. No, I can't tell you, said Shuza. But Naruto probably thinks I will act like most parents and not let you near him, he's just saving himself the heartache. I'm probably one of a very few who respect him. I see, said Choji. We'll have him over for dinner sometime, him and that Lee kid, said Shuza. Choji instantly brightened up at this. Naruto sat atop the Hokage monument overlooking the village. It was early in the morning and the sun had yet to rise. He waited there calmly, waiting for when he would set out to meet his team. He sported a black track jacket over his orange tank top, wearing dark black ninja pants with many pockets. He was leaning forward so his swords remained off the ground. Naruto, shouted out a small figure from behind him. A boy probably around 8 at the time with brown hair ran up to him. Naruto looked over at him and gave a small smile. What is it, Konohamaru? Asked Naruto. Konohamaru shuffled around on both his feet and looked down. It was clear to the blonde that he wanted to ask for something. Do you think you can take me flying again? Asked Konohamaru. Naruto let out a sigh. The boy had caught him some 2 years ago when he was in the forest. The young brown-haired ball of energy was running away from his personal tutor when he saw Naruto fly. Naruto had told him it was a secret and no one could know. Konohamaru had agreed, but only under the condition that Naruto take him into the sky. Naruto had done so, and the boy had been addicted ever since. I'm sorry, but I can't today, said Naruto. The boy looked down at the ground, sad and defeated. I'll let you know when I can though. The young lad instantly brightened up at that. Naruto got to his feet and patted Konohamaru on the head. He then jumped off the Hokage monument to head towards the training ground. He landed with a loud crash, creating a small crater. Nobody was up at this time, so he was not worried about being seen. He began to walk away but looked back at the crater. It amazed him to no end how he could fall from heights far greater and still only feel the smallest of tingles when he landed. His body seemed to be built for that sort of thing. He waved to Konohamaru, who was jumping for joy and shouting out to him in excitement. Naruto arrived at the training ground and awaited his teammates. Both of them weren't there yet, so Naruto practiced going through his sword steps. He was there for about an hour before Sasuke and Sakura finally showed up. All three of them waited there. Sasuke looked like he was sleeping, Sakura was trying to scoot closer to him, and Naruto just continued to practice. This continued for about 3 hours before Kakashi finally showed up. Sakura and Sasuke sent him glares for being late. Naruto just expected it. He had never met Kakashi before, but the man was often talked about by Guy as his hip rival. His tardy record was one of the many things that Guy would tell him about. Alright, let's get started, said Team 7 Sensei. Sakura, I want you to spar with me, show everything you know to me, don't hold back. Sakura got up and nodded at the Junin. Kakashi pulled out his perverted book. She took the Academy Taijutsu stance, and Kakashi began to study her, looking for flaws. Her stance is full of flaws, but not any more than is expected from someone fresh from the academy, thought Kakashi. Sakura ran towards him, throwing kunai as she went. Kakashi lazily caught them and waited for her to get closer. He studied her movements as she threw a punch. He easily caught it. Suddenly he saw Sasuke jump up from behind her. His eyes widened only slightly as he let go of her. He sent a kick at Sasuke only to see it go right through him. He looked over at the tree and saw Sasuke still sitting there. Oh, I see, pretty clever, creating a bushin and using genjutsu to make it look like one of her teammates, thought Kakashi. Pretty impressive. To weave an illusion around a normal bushin, she defiantly has talent in genjutsu. Kakashi decided he had probably already seen all she could really offer. Okay Sakura, that's enough. Sasuke, you're up. The young Uchiha came forth and took his own stance. Unlike Sakura's, it was not the academy style, instead it was the classic Uchiha style. Kakashi put his book away, deciding to take this fight more seriously. Sasuke ran towards him at an evenly fast pace, just a little quicker than Sakura's. By his slow movement I say he is wearing weights, thought Kakashi. His eyes wandered to the white armbands and leg bands with the Uchiha fan on them. His eyes widened. I don't believe it, Makoto gave him the Uchiha weights already. If he doesn't take them off, he should definitely be at Chunin level by the time of the exams. Sasuke jumped in the air and threw a spin kick at Kakashi. The Junin caught the leg with one hand. Sasuke spun around the other way to use his other leg for another kick. That leg was caught as well. Sasuke was hanging upside down in Kakashi's hands. The boy smirked and quickly formed seals. Kakashi's eyes widened. No way, he said to himself. Sasuke finished forming the seals and sucked in air. Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu, said Sasuke as he blew out a large fireball. Kakashi let go of Sasuke and backpedaled away. He jumped in the air and completely avoided the fireball. Sasuke was about to throw some kunai at him while he was in the air, but before he could blink, Kakashi was behind him with a kunai to his neck. Very impressive, Sasuke, said Kakashi. He sent a look towards Naruto, signaling him to come for his turn. Naruto walked into the field a good distance away from Kakashi. Before he could even get in his stance, he saw Kakashi blur. He immediately tried to turn around, but the Junin was too fast for him with his weights on. He looked in Kakashi's visible eye and saw it narrow. Naruto felt the grip tighten and knew Kakashi was trying to break his arm. Naruto slapped the front of his belt, which was attached to the switchblade holders. The blades flung backwards, being propelled through the air as they unfolded as if on springs. Kakashi was forced to let go and jumped back. The blades were still coming at him. He was about to jump up more to avoid them when he saw two clones appear and grab onto a blade each. Kakashi's eye narrowed. The two clones engaged him and he was forced to dodge. He tried to throw a punch to make the clones disappear, but the clones used the flat of the blades and blocked the blows. Because they were real swords and not some shadow-copied weapon, they were able to take the blow, preventing the clone from disappearing. Kakashi saw three more clones appear and take a sword each from Naruto's back. Naruto himself took out the main blade. The clones surrounded Kakashi, each brandishing one of the weapons. Kakashi's eyes widened yet again that day as he saw them take a familiar stance. Mikazuki no Mai, said Naruto and his clones. The illusion took effect and they all charged forth, hitting Kakashi simultaneously. Fear went in the blonde's eyes, not that anyone could see it with the sunglasses, as he thought he killed his sensei. However, Kakashi poofed into a log. Naruto felt something sharp pointed at his neck and he cancelled out his clones. Naruto put the main blade away and looked up at Kakashi. Where did you learn that technique? Asked Kakashi accusingly. The Hokage gave me a scroll that he wanted me to learn from, said Naruto. That was one of the jutsu. Kakashi's eye narrowed. He looked at his team and put on his mask of indifference. You all did rather well, said Kakashi. Meet at the bridge tomorrow for your first mission. Quote. So Kakashi, I hear you got Uzumaki on your team, said Kurenai in a cheerful voice. I heard that he is actually quite good. Kakashi looked at the woman and narrowed his visible eye, an action that surprised the genjutsu user greatly. Kurenai, don't ever talk to me about him again, said Kakashi. There was actually quite a few Junin around them as they were all awaiting the Hokage to arrive. All of them raised their eyebrows at Kakashi's attitude towards the boy. He always seemed so laid back, and to see him like this was surprising. Kakashi walked to the other side of the room and pulled out his perverted book and began to read. Even if it made him look lazy, The affect of it was taken away by the aura he was giving off. Asuma walked up behind Kurenai. The Kyuubi took his sensei. I guess he is one of the many that hates the boy, said Asuma. I'm just surprised as all, said Kurenai. I thought someone as great as Kakashi would have been above such prejudice. Asuma let out a sigh. The majority hated the boy with a passion, but most Junin respected what the fourth's dying wish was and viewed the child as a hero. Asuma was one of them. I just wonder why the Hokage gave Kakashi Naruto, said Asuma. A sensei that hates his student can't truly be called a sensei, and thus the student cannot learn. At that moment the Hokage entered the room. He walked up to the front desk and cleared his throat. As you know, only 3 teams worth of genin passed the academy, said the Hokage. It is because of this that the final test was unnecessary. However, I would still like a full report of your students' skills. I'm sure that you have already tested them. The Junin in charge of the teams all nodded. Now for the reason you are all here, said the Hokage. The Kazekage is coming to Konoha sometime today, and bringing his son with him. Everybody listened intently at what was to come next. It was most likely something quite political. Like our very own Uzumaki Naruto, the Kazekage's son has a demon sealed in him as well. It is because of this that the cage is coming. I am supposed to fix the boy's seal as he has been very unstable and continues to grow as so. Most of the shinobi were shocked at the fact that the Suna had a demon container as well. However, a few had heard some rumors about it. One of those people happened to be Kakashi. I heard the boy is bloodthirsty, and his demon awakens when he is asleep, said the copy nin. Yes, that is one of the things I am supposed to fix, said the Hokage. Now I would like some volunteers to watch the Kazekage and his son. A few raised a hand for the protection of the Kazekage. The Junin nodded. Is that all? Asked a Junin in the back. The boy's name is Gaara. You are all to escort him into the forest later tonight so he doesn't hurt anyone, said the Hokage. You are then to leave the immediate area and leave Gaara to himself. A few shinobi raised an eyebrow. If people are around, he'll want to kill them, said the Hokage flatly. They all nodded. Well, you all have the orders. Konohamaru ran through the village at top speed towards the one place he was certain his hero would be. Ichiraku Ramen Stand, was what the sign read as the little boy entered. And sure enough, at the counter next to a tower of ramen bowls was, in the boy's opinion, the single greatest shinobi to ever walk the planet. It was no small secret that the boy worshipped the ground Naruto walked on, well, at least not to Naruto. To him, Naruto was everything the boy wanted to be. Naruto was the first one not to laugh at his dream to be Hokage. The blonde helped him whenever he didn't understand something and more or less tolerated his presence. It was because of all these reasons the boy was close to the blonde whenever possible. Konohamaru hopped up onto a seat next to the blonde boy. So Naruto, when are you going to take me flying? Asked Konohamaru, acting all serious. Naruto let out a sigh. Tonight, meet me in the forest, said Naruto. He gave a grin and ruffled the boy's hair. Think of this as payment. Konohamaru gave him a confused look as he began to leave. Wait, what do you mean? Think of what as payment? Shouted out the brown-haired boy. He heard the ramen chef clear his throat and he looked over at him. I'm assuming you will pay for all those, said the old man, pointing to the huge stack of dishes. Ah crap, whispered Konohamaru. Naruto. Gaara. These people are going to help you, said the Kazekage as he sat in the carriage with his son. The boy known as Gaara just stared out at his father with cold eyes. Don't you want it to stop? The voice calling for blood. Gaara did not answer, he just looked out the carriage window as they entered the gates of the new village. They met with the Anbu as they got out of the carriage. That meeting had been very brief as they were rushed to the Hokage's office. Gaara could sense many shinobi placed around them as they walked through the village. All of them were at least Junin. The pair slowly made their way up to through the tower that belonged to the Hokage. They entered through the large doors and on the other side sat an old man in cage robes. He gave a smile to them. Welcome, Kazekage, said the old man. Gaara took a seat beside his father and looked around. There were a few Junin outside watching through the window on guard. Kill! Shouted a demonic voice. Kill them all, give me their blood. Gaara shook his head to get rid of the voices. He felt the demon making him excited. The demon always did this, he altered his adrenaline and made him enjoy the thrill of killing. However, Gaara did not delude himself, he liked killing all of the people. It's what they all deserved in his opinion for doing to him what they did. Love thyself and only thyself. That was his motto. He would have killed his father long ago if not for the mon's strength. Give me blood, shouted out the voice in his mind. The old man looked at the boy's seal and sighed. I can fix it, but it will take some time, said the old man. I shall have everything ready by tomorrow. Your son will have to stay in the forest tonight for his safety and our own. Kill him, sang the demon in his head. Gaara nodded, but everyone could see the insane look in his eyes. He was ready to kill at any moment and would take any chance. They exited the office and walked down the street with his father. He looked around and saw people whispering. Naruto slowly walked out of an alley when he heard some people talking. They were pointing at a boy with red hair who walked beside the cage. They say he has a demon sealed in him, and he has already killed over 100 people in his village, said a woman. Filthy monsters, they're all the same, said another. Naruto looked at the boy with something akin to pity. He's like me, said Naruto to himself. However, it was obvious that unlike Naruto, the boy with red hair had given into his insanity. The Anbu Special Forces deposited Gaara in a deep part forest. Upon arriving, he instantly killed a deer and fed it to his sand. After seeing such a display, the Anbu quickly left the demon container to himself. What are you doing? Shouted out the demon in his mind. Kill those mortal fools before they get away. Father is here, I'll be hurt, said Gaara. Kill. The demon repeated that word in his head long into nightfall. Naruto wore the black hooded cloak that he had the night of the Uchiha massacre. He always wore it to hide who he was when he did something like this. He carried a large wrapped bundle over his shoulder, and his glowing blue eyes were the only visible part of him on his face. He found if anyone saw him like this, they would not recognize him. When he walked around normally, he had sunglasses that covered his eyes, and he kept his sword in its separate pieces. He walked to the edge of the forest, and sure enough, there was Konohamaru waiting for him. The little boy was about to say something, but Naruto beat him to it. Let's go deeper in the woods, said Naruto. The little boy nodded. They walked for a good few miles or so before they finally stopped. Here will be fine. Konohamaru nodded and watched the boy. Naruto reached over his shoulder and pulled some cloth that was at the back of his cloak over his shoulders. When he moved it, it revealed two rather big holes in the back of the cloak. The younger of the two knew that the older boy's wings would sprout out of the holes on his jacket. Naruto stood there and prepared to summon his wings when he felt it. A massive amount of killing intent directed entirely at the two of them. He turned around to find the source only to see a disfigured shadow standing behind Konohamaru. The shadow raised one large claw-like arm, preparing to strike. Naruto wasted no time and ran to the boy. He brought his large bandaged sword down and blocked the attack. Naruto was more than a little surprised at the strength behind the blow as he was nearly taken off his feet. Konohamaru, run! Shouted Naruto. The little boy looked on, not knowing what to do, but eventually ran towards the village. Naruto turned his gaze back to the shadowed form. His blade still blocking, what closer inspection revealed to be a demonic-looking arm. Naruto then focused on the face of his opponent and his glowing eyes widened. Half the face was that of a raccoon that appeared to be made out of sand, and the other half was that of the red-headed boy he saw earlier. Inside Naruto's mind, a red-headed figure looked out at the scene and smiled to herself. Shukaku, this could work to my benefit, said Kyuubi. The demon stared at the blue field that surrounded her cage, preventing her from doing anything that would affect Naruto in any way. She couldn't even heal him, thus giving a higher risk to her own life ending. She made herself comfortable on the ground and waited. Naruto parried blow after blow, holding his sword with one hand while he dug through his kunai pockets with the other hand. Gaara was only attacking with his giant sand hand. Naruto took out an kunai with an exploding tag on it. He threw it directly at Gaara's feet. The demon boy looked down and immediately brought his large arm up to guard himself from the explosion. It blew, sending Gaara back a couple of feet. "Give me more control. We will kill him then," shouted out Shukaku. More of the sand wrapped around Gaara, and now his whole body resembled that of a raccoon. Sand spikes shot from his body all towards Naruto. He grasped his sword firmly and began slashing with speed and grace, destroying all the sand spikes. Gaara appeared beside the boy, and it took all he had to parry the attack in time. Gaara's chest puffed up and he blew out a breath of chakra-laced air at Naruto. Naruto dodged to the side but was caught in his right arm. His sleeve was completely torn off, revealing his diamond-shaped gravity seal. Blood leaked from several cuts made by the attack. Soon whitish-blue chakra swept over it and it was healed. Naruto brought his hand up to the seal on his right shoulder and it began to glow. A small burst of energy was given off and Gaara halted his attack in confusion. Naruto brought his sword back up in a ready stance faster than before. Gaara blinked and the boy was beside him, slashing down across his chest. It connected and Gaara was sent hurtling back by the force of it. Naruto was beside him in a blur that Gaara could not even see. Naruto kicked him in the back, sending him skyward. Gaara flipped in the air and extended his arm towards the black-cloaked person. He fully expected to overpower the man like he did a few times already. However, it appeared that not only his speed had improved but his strength as well. He took the attack with his sword and summoned chakra to his blade. He slashed at the arm and a blade of chakra energy was sent along it, using the arm as a path to Gaara. "How?" shouted Gaara as his sand arm was destroyed. He landed a few feet away from his opponent. Naruto raised an eyebrow, not that it was seen through his hood. He didn't think Gaara could really talk in his current state. "Why did you attack me?" asked Naruto. "Kill. I must kill you. I need your blood to satisfy him," shouted out Gaara. "But you are strong. How are you strong? Why are you strong? Why can't I kill you yet?" "I don't want to fight you," stated Naruto. "Fight you? I must fight you. Kill you? I must kill you, to prove my existence," said Gaara as he clutched his head. Shukaku was currently sending him memories of his childhood against his will. "I will kill you." A huge wall of sand erupted around Gaara, going higher and higher till it was close to the size of a small mountain. The sand slowly started to take shape into a giant sand raccoon demon. The Hokage stood at the edge of the village with the Kazekage as well as several Anbu and Junin. They all saw the large figure in the distance. Konohamaru had reached them and told them what was out there. The Hokage had cut him off before he mentioned Naruto. "Hokage Dono, why do you not let your forces engage it?" asked the Kazekage. "The problem is being taken care of," stated the Hokage with a cheerful smile. "By who?" asked Kakashi, coming forward. "By the same person who saved Miss Makoto and young Sasuke from the Uchiha massacre." Everyone fell silent and stared out at the distant figure of the sand raccoon. There was no way any of them could see anything from such a distance. Heck, they could barely make out the sand demon. "I hope you know what you are doing," said the Kazekage. The Hokage just continued to smile. "Let us see what you do, Naruto," thought the Hokage. Naruto looked straight up at the giant figure. He bent over and clutched his arms, soon white wings erupted from his back. He gave a small grunt at the pain they brought when coming out. He looked back up at the giant and sighed. "No holding back," thought Naruto. He could sense from here that the boy's own power was near its limit and that he hadn't started using his demons yet. Naruto needed to stop him before he could. Naruto's body started to course with his special whitish-blue chakra. His whole body was glowing with the power. He flapped his wings once and he was sent rocketing towards Gaara. Gaara threw his arm in a straight thrust at the flying form of Naruto. Naruto flew around the arm in a straight path towards the shoulder. Spikes of sand began shooting out of the arm as he circled up it. He dogged them with grace. Finally one erupted in front of him. He gave a powerful flap forward to stop himself from crashing into it. He hovered there in the air for only a second, but that was all it took for more spikes to erupt forward at him. He folded his wings in and dived down towards the legs. Gaara then began to kick at the ground in an attempt to hit Naruto. Naruto flew under them and ended up behind Gaara. However, he looked up and noticed all the spines on the tail as it angled pointing towards him. Hundreds of thousands of sand bullets flew at him. He brought his wings around his body, his sword towards the ground, and his chakra began to form into his wings and around his body. They glowed as he was struck. He was hurtled towards the ground, his wings protecting him. On the other side of the shield that the boy's wings created, Naruto was panting as his chakra and wings shielded him. Crap! Was all he thought as the bullets rained down upon him. In Naruto's mind, the Kyuubi sat smirking as she observed the boy's field around her cage begin to fade. This was her chance and she knew it. She looked out at the boy and said the words that she didn't even know he could hear. And for the might of her, she wished he hadn't. Pathetic, just like the rest. She whispered. Naruto laid there panting heavily as the sand continued to rain on him. His eyes felt so heavy and he knew he was draining all of his chakra. His eyes slowly began to close until he heard it. It was a whisper from the dark demon that plagued his mind. With it, it carried all her evil intentions and thoughts. Pathetic, just like the rest. Naruto's eyes snapped completely open and he felt all his strength returning to him. Kyuubi stood on the other side of the cage, shocked as it began to glow with the same white chakra field it always did. No, she shouted. This can't be, he couldn't have heard me. Where is all this power coming from? His body surged with his chakra and he pushed his wings outward. Instantly a bright chakra field shot out, destroying all the sand bullets that were coming towards him and caused the huge demon to take a step back. Naruto wasted no time, as he didn't know how long all his power would last. He flew up the creature's back at unimaginable speeds. He separated the hollow blade from the rest of the sword so that he now had two. Spikes shot up from the demon's back trying to stop him. He cut through them all, not stopping as he continued forward. His sword slashed around him, destroying the sand and blurring speeds. He flew at the base of the creature's neck and landed on the shoulder. He turned in a half circle and put the hollow blade back, making the complete sword once again. He then spun fully around as his blade pulsed with almost all of his chakra. He slashed the air at the sand neck of Gaara. The giant raccoon's head was taken clean off by the glowing energy blade that shot out of Naruto's sword. The effects were instant as the entire body crumbled. Gaara slammed into the ground, and Naruto gently landed as he flew down. Gaara stared at him, Naruto's face completely hidden, and all that showed was his intense eyes. He spread his wings out and walked forward. Gaara wanted to do something, anything. But he had used up all his chakra. He couldn't even summon his demon because he didn't have the energy to do his forced sleep technique. How? Asked Gaara. How could you beat me? Because I wouldn't allow myself to lose, said Naruto. Gaara just stared at him. I needed to protect this village, so you wouldn't destroy it. I'd bear a demon. Gaara's eye widened in surprise, then in anger. That doesn't make any sense. Don't they hate you? Why would you defend them? Gaara shouted in pure rage. Naruto looked at him in pure silence for what seemed like an eternity. His glowing lightning eyes bore into the boy as if judging his worth. Seeing what lied in the boy's heart. It affected Gaara greatly and he didn't like it. Answer me, shouted out Gaara Aegean. How many? Said Naruto. Gaara looked at him confused. How many have you killed, Gaara? With your demon, how many hundreds died? How many thousands do you think my demon killed? How many husbands, wives, families have they taken, Gaara? Gaara sat there in silence staring at the hooded stranger. They have every right to hate us, the most we can do is live with it and do all we can to repent. But why? We didn't ask for this, why must we repent? Because Gaara, if we don't, who will? Gaara looked at him again, tears started to form in his eyes at all the pain he had suffered in his life. If they hate us and we hate them, all there is an endless cycle of pain. But if we end it, if we love them and help them, then maybe, it might become easier to bear. I can't, the pain, it's too much, said Gaara, clutching his head. He remembered it all, the fearful stares, children being pulled away from him, the children who called him a monster. It all hurt him so much. Then maybe you should just die here, said Naruto as he picked up his sword and walked over to Gaara. Gaara stared up at him, tears in his eye. He closed them and awaited death, but it never came. Gaara opened his eyes and looked behind him and saw the black-clad figure walking away. His wings still extend to his side, making him look holy. Why don't you kill me? You said it yourself, I should just die, said Gaara. Naruto looked back at him and smiled, not that Gaara could see it. Because I got a feeling that things are going to change for you, that is if you let them, said Naruto. He then flew off away from Gaara. Mere moments later, both cages appeared with Anbu and Junin. Gaara, said the cage as he rushed over to his son. He stopped a couple of feet away from him, knowing that Gaara wouldn't let him get too close. Dad, you said my seal could be fixed, when can that happen? Asked Gaara in all sincerity. The cage took a step back in surprise, but then a small smile crept on his face. And then what happened? You know, after you cut off the giant raccoon's head? Asked Konohamaru. I went home and went to bed, said Naruto. What? That's all? How anticlimactic, said Konohamaru with a pout. Naruto just smiled at this.